Chapter 220. This elixir was at least 10 times stronger than the elixirs they had taken in the past. Just the aura emitted from the surface of this elixir was enough to make one feel refreshed after taking a few breaths. The other two also saw the elixir. This elixir is of an extraordinary grade. It's impossible to refine the elixir after the cauldron was blown to such an extent. After the older man finished speaking, the tone of his voice was extremely obvious. He and the other person seemed to be discussing something with each other. Suddenly, the two men stretched out their hands and slashed down with their blades. Clang. The man who first discovered the elixir reacted quickly. He drew out his weapon and blocked the slash. However, the other man's blade was unable to block it. He could only watch as the blade slashed towards his head. Crash! A head flew up and rolled on the ground. At this moment, no matter where the head was chopped, there was a chance of survival. Only when the head was chopped off would it all end. Then all of this will come to an end. Even if you have 3 heads and 6 arms, it will be useless. Although they were all colleagues, everyone had to become stronger in such an environment in order to stand out among the black blood deacons and even survive. If one wasn't strong enough, they would have been killed and exiled long ago. Therefore, every opportunity to become stronger was very precious. Even if they were facing their former colleagues and teammates, killing them was the same as killing them. There was no affection between them. To be able to survive in such a situation, they had to rely on their own strength. The only thing they believed in was the blade in their hands. The power of this elixir is extraordinary. The leader is not here at the moment, so only the 2 of us know about it. No one would have thought that the elixir could still be refined after the cauldron was blown to such an extent. There's no need to say anything more between us. We'll split the elixir in half, but leave it with me first. How about it? The older man said. In terms of strength, he was stronger than the other man. From the looks of it, it was not the first time the 2 of them had done such a thing. As they spoke, the 2 of them were obviously wary of each other. If the black blood deacons killed each other because of these resources, they would definitely not be able to survive if they were exposed. Whether they could survive or not was secondary. The main thing was that they would not be able to get anything in the end. The loss would definitely outweigh the gain. The other man pondered for a moment, then nodded and said to the older man in a deep voice, "If that's the case, I'll listen to you." The older man's lips curled into a smile. No matter what, they had to get the elixir first. As for splitting it equally, this kind of thing was impossible. If it were just some small things that were worth a little money, then it wouldn't be a big deal to give away some of it. But the pills in his hands were different. But the elixir, it would bring an earth-shaking change. The world. If they could get their hands on the elixir and refine it, it might not be impossible for them to break free from the imprisonment of the black blood deacons. The opportunity to change their fate was right in front of them. How could they give it up? In fact, neither of them would give up. It was just that they had different plans. Don't worry. As long as I'm here, I won't let anyone hurt you. Just as the older man was about to pick up the elixir, a black hand appeared. He saw a hand that was charred black picking up the elixir. Then he placed it in his hand, blew off the dust on it, and looked at it carefully. There seemed to be a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. Fortunately, it's not damaged. I'm afraid you won't be able to take this elixir away today. Li Zongjio placed the elixir into a porcelain bottle. His body was already charred black, and his entire body was charred. The extent of the damage was simply unimaginable. Originally, Li Zongjio might have been able to avoid the explosion. However, when he thought of his ancient golden body technique, he chose to give up at the last moment. Instead, he used his own body to bear the impact of the explosion. That powerful explosion almost destroyed Li Zongjio's entire body. It was as if he was continuously rolling in the sea of fire. From head to toe, his entire body had been completely cleansed by the flames. At this moment, Li Zongjio could feel the aura of death. However, after struggling for a while, he finally climbed out of this hell. Li Zongjio lowered his head and glanced at his charred skin. Li Zongjio wiped off the charred skin on the surface of his body. Not only his arm, but the charred skin all over his body was easily wiped off like a piece of burnt paper. Only the white and tender skin on his hand was left. Even Li Zongjio couldn't believe that his skin had become so tender. Could such tender skin kill people? The sudden appearance of Li Zongjio had also brought them great shock. Just now, such a huge explosion had occurred inside, but this Li Zongjio was actually not killed by it. What was this guy's body made of? If it wasn't for the fact that he looked so much like a human. They even suspected that Li Zongjio was an evil spirit that had walked out of hell. The two of them looked at each other. Without any unnecessary communication, they drew their swords and stepped forward. You are Li Zongjio? Li Zongjio was the target of their mission today. It could be said that all these people died because of Li Zongjio. Although Li Zongjio wasn't the one who killed them, he still had to bear some responsibility. Although I don't know who you are, you disturbed my alchemy. Go to hell. Li Zongjio said indifferently. The two of them didn't hesitate when they heard this. They directly charged at Li Zongjio from the left and right. The pill was in Li Zongjio's hands. As long as they killed Li Zongjio, they would be able to get the pill. In this way, the death of the other person could be explained clearly. They could say that Li Zongjio killed that colleague. The perfect plan was about to unfold. The two of them attacked, but Li Zongjio didn't panic when he saw this. They were just two people at the Yuan master level. Could it be that they could cause any trouble in front of him? Li Zongjio directly stretched out his hand. Li Zongjio stretched out his hand and easily grabbed the throat of one of them. His speed was as fast as lightning. No one would have thought that Li Zongjio's speed would be so fast. Wasn't he just a young man? Moreover, in the explosion just now, he should have suffered some injuries. In fact, Li Zongjio's strength had increased after experiencing that destructive explosion. Die! The other person suddenly attacked. The blade in his hand was aimed at Li Zongjio's neck. However, an extremely clear breaking sound was heard. Clang. The neck was still there, but the blade was broken. Chapter 221. What? The dark blood blade in his hand was forged from blood ore. It was bloodthirsty and violent. The more people it killed, the sharper the dark blood blade in his hand. However, this dark blood blade that had absorbed the blood of countless people could not even cut through Li Zongjio's neck. Generally speaking, the neck was the softest part of the body. Moreover, it was also the most difficult part to heal. After an assassin's throat was cut, there was basically no hope. This guy is a monster. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Li Zongjio twist his fingers and twist his companion's head off. He turned around and was about to escape. However, he felt a strong wind whistling behind him. His companion's head directly hit his head with a bang. The two heads collided, and the person who was hit fell to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was already dizzy. Just this impact alone was enough to make him faint. After falling to the ground, he continued to crawl forward. He knew that once he stopped, only death would await him. Even if he crawled, it would only waste a little more energy. Li Zongjio stepped forward and stomped on the man's head. After changing his clothes, Li Zongjio walked out of the door of the alchemy room. It could not even be considered a door anymore. It was blown to smithereens. When he walked out, he saw a corpse lying in front of him. It was Xiao Chao who had led him here, killed by these people. Seeing this scene, Li Zongjio was not very angry. After all, Xiao Chao was not a member of the Li family. Most importantly, in this world where the strong preyed on the weak, if you were not strong enough, it was a mistake. Anyone could devour you. The one to blame was not others, but yourself. In his previous life, Li Zongjio blamed others. He only blamed himself for being weak and unable to protect his family. Therefore, in this life, Li Zongjio would not let the same thing happen. He, evil Lord Li Zongjio, would lead the entire Li family and spread their wings. No one in the entire continent would dare to provoke them. You're courting death. Li Zongjio walked up the stairs. The large-scale explosion in the Mirror Moon Pavilion naturally caused quite a commotion. However, the doors of the Mirror Moon Pavilion were tightly shut and there was a blood-red token hanging on the door. When they saw this token, even the city guards had to take a detour. After all, this was Di Xian Merchant Alliance's business. Who would dare to mess around? About 100 meters away from the Mirror Moon Pavilion, there was a restaurant called the Purple Firmament Pavilion. The top floor had a wide view, and only the nobles of the city were allowed to enter. At this moment, there were two people standing at the top of the Purple Cloud Tower, looking at the retreating city guards, the tightly shut Mirror Moon Tower, and the blood-red token hanging at the entrance of the Mirror Moon Tower. His eyes seemed to be extremely satisfied with everything that was happening in front of him. You've spent a lot of effort to create this Black Blood Deacon group. Now that our D Shen Merchant Alliance has expanded to such a level, the next step is to gather our strength and enter the Heavenly Cauldron City. This Mirror Moon Pavilion has been monopolizing the benefits of the Merchant Alliance for too long and is unwilling to contribute. In the end, she wants to take a share of the profits. She's dreaming. One of them held a cup of wine in his hand, and there was a dissatisfied expression in his eyes. At the same time, he also had a satisfied expression at the scene before him. This operation is swift and decisive. How much you can take is your business. My mission has already been completed. The other person was also wearing black clothes, and there was also a blood-red token hanging on his waist. This person was the leader of the Black Blood Deacon group. To be able to train such a cold-blooded troop, one could imagine that this old man was not a warm-hearted person. Although he was in charge of the Black Blood Deacon group, in reality, this leader was not listed as one of the 10 directors of the D Shen Merchant Alliance. In the D Shen Merchant Alliance, he was only obedient. After many years of obedience, this old man, who had hidden his fangs, gradually released the viciousness in the darkness. He had to fight his way out in such a situation. The identity of the old man, who was standing beside him and holding a wine cup, was obvious. He was one of the 10 directors of the D Shen Merchant Alliance, and also the person in charge behind Lin Jitong. Lin Jitong occupied 80% of the sales of spiritual herbs and spiritual medicine in Flying Cloud City, and there were branches in all the major streets. They hired servants to go up the mountain to gather herbs, and the price of the herbs was extremely low. If they did not sell the herbs to them, they could forget about selling them in Flying Cloud City. At the very least, this was how it was in the spiritual medicine industry. The selling price was more or less the same as usual, but sometimes, when one continued to use a certain high-grade herb, the price would increase by a few times. Originally, there were at least 3 or 4 big herb suppliers in Flying Cloud City. Until now, Lin Jitong was the only one who was the biggest supplier. And this was Lin Jitong's hallmaster, Lin Baoquan. There were not many people who could call the wind and summon the rain in Flying Cloud City, and Lin Baoquan was one of them. In addition to handling Lin Jitong's matter, Lin Baochuan's son and the daughter of the sect leader of Flying Snow Sword Sect completed the marriage. Flying Snow Sword Sect. It was close to 700 miles away from Flying Cloud City. Similarly, within 1,000 miles, it was also the #1 sect and there were few rivals. With such a background, in addition to his own strength, he had a lot of weight in the D Shen Merchant Alliance. Lin Baoquan could cover the sky with one hand. This time, the news of Su Yuliang was directly intercepted by Lin Baoquan, and he gave the order to kill the entire Su family, leaving no one alive. He directly placed the Su family on the same level as the Li family. It was because of this that he had enough reason to destroy the Su family, and he would definitely kill Li Zhongjiu. After that, it would be the Li family. In Flying Cloud City, the Huang family and the Su family had already lost their power. As long as he destroyed the Li family. Then, in this city, the next force that had a chance to enter the D Shen Merchant Alliance would be the family that he supported. Every party would use all means to cultivate their own forces in order to gain a foothold in the Merchant Alliance, and even monopolize the power. In the Merchant Alliance, the competition was equally intense. Perhaps at the beginning of the establishment, they might work together. However, after the situation stabilized, the various forces would fight openly and secretly, and even backstab each other. This kind of behavior was too common to count. Hence, if a merchant alliance wanted to maintain for a long time, it had to be led by a big shot, and the people below would not dare to move. Only then would it be able to last. If everyone was on equal footing, everyone could see the moment when they were in power. By then, it would be a real bloodbath. Chapter 222. The two of them were watching the show from outside the restaurant. The lower floors of the Purple Cloud Tower were filled with experts in black robes and blood plates. Their faces were cold. At this moment, their troops were gathered because they were going to destroy the Li family today. Li Zongjio was ambushed. The Li family would definitely not sit still and come to rescue him. The people they were waiting for were the Li family members. On the Huangyuan or mountain, the members of the Li clan who had received the news also rushed over at top speed. Li Zongjio was alone in the city. He would definitely be chased by the Di Shen Merchant Alliance. No matter what, they had to send someone to rescue him. Otherwise, Li Zongjio would be in great danger. Therefore, Li Zongjio put down everything in his hands and did not bring many people with him. Only Li Gui had brought a small team with him. Xiao Ye and the other three had followed him. The three of you, quickly go to the Mirror Moon Tower and save Li Zongjio. Li Tianqing remembered the secret weapon that Li Zongjio had told him. It was supposed to be a secret weapon, but at this critical moment, he could not care less. Immediately, Luo Sha and the other two hurriedly split into two and stepped on the back of the horse. Their figures soared into the sky. The aura of a Yuan general expert was released. Li Gui and the others were dumbstruck when they saw this scene. These people were actually so strong. They were like three black birds that disappeared in the sky and flew far away in an instant. Boom, boom. The three of them were as fast as lightning in the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Li Tianqing was left in shock. Fuck, how did these three experts get in? This kid is really capable. He must hold on. This damn Di Shen Merchant Alliance. I haven't done anything to you, but you dare to attack me first. There was a trace of anger in Li Tianqing's eyes. Originally, Li Tianqing's strategy was to make progress while maintaining stability. At the very least, he had to stabilize the price of the Xian or temporarily. Once the business was connected, it would be easier for him to expand. At this level, there was no need to provoke the Merchant Alliance. In fact, if these people wanted to take some benefits, Li Tianqing would be willing to give it to them. However, now that they wanted to deal with his son, Li Tianqing naturally refused. Patriarch, is this information reliable? Li Gui raised a little doubt. If this was a trap or something, then wouldn't it directly put Li Tianqing in danger? Or it could be said that they didn't even catch the young master at all. Things happened so suddenly that he didn't have time to verify the information because there was no time left. There's no time to verify it. There's no need to be afraid. Just charge in. My Li clan isn't a pushover. If anyone wants to kill me, I'll see how fast his blade is. Inside the Mirror Moon Pavilion, Li Zongjio came to the ground. The people in the Mirror Moon Pavilion were all stripped of their weapons and locked in a room. At the same time, they were also released with poisonous smoke. Everyone was poisoned until they fainted. The entire Mirror Moon Pavilion was cleared. In fact, this time, the Black Blood Deacons came to set up this trap to trap the people from the Li clan. However, they didn't expect that someone would send out the information in advance. Therefore, Li Tianqing and the others came faster than they expected. However, although they came quickly, there wasn't much difference. Logically speaking, Li Zongjio should be dead. The ones who came up now should be his subordinates. However, the remaining three Black Blood Deacons were stunned. Li Zongjio's hair was a little messy, but it was clean. He walked up to them and stood in front of them. Shouldn't this kid have been killed by the explosion? The explosion just now was real. Even if there was a secret passage or something like that, it would have been blown to smithereens. Therefore, when they saw Li Zongjio, the three of them were shocked. However, it wasn't strange that the three Black Blood Deacons didn't make it back. So it's you guys who did this? Li Zongjio looked at the empty hall. There seemed to be some bloodstains on the ground. The blood was fresh, but it showed signs of coagulation after a while. It was done by the people in front of him. They must have killed a lot of people. Li Zongjio? Very good. You came out alive. I'm very interested in you. However, it's a pity that you'll die here today. The Black Blood Deacon said indifferently. The two subordinates quietly scattered to the sides. One of them was holding a crossbow and a short knife at his waist. His eyes were sharp and he had already locked onto Li Zongjio's aura. With just a command, The crossbow in his hand could turn Li Zongjio into a hedgehog. The other person held a knife with both hands. The bloody knife in his hand was a lengthened version. It was longer than an ordinary person's knife. These Black Blood Deacons had their own unique style and fighting style. Therefore, it was difficult to study them specifically. The Black Blood Deacon group was also difficult to be understood by others. Being unable to be understood by the enemy and being flexible was the wisest way to protect oneself. Kill him. The leader was also on full alert. However, he didn't make a move. There was no need for him to do such a thing. Li Zongjio should have been a dying man. However, he came back to life. This was a failure in the mission. However, in front of him, Li Zongjio couldn't escape. Li Zongjio didn't think so. Facing the pincer attack from the two of them, he turned around at this moment. You guys have a safe trip. At such a critical moment of life and death, he actually dared to pretend to be strong. This was his most fatal weakness. When they saw Li Zongjio turn around, the two Black Blood Deacons were already prepared to attack. However, just as they were about to release the arrow, something that only needed a thought and a finger to do, they didn't know why they couldn't control their fingers. The Black Blood Deacon glanced at his fingers. At this moment, he could see his broken wrist. My hand. These words only formed in his mind. He didn't say it out loud. Poochie. Blood spurted out from his wrist. Luo Sha's 5 fingers were as sharp as an eagle's. They easily chopped off the Black Blood Deacon's hand. The moment the blood spurted out, the Black Blood Deacon didn't feel any pain. No! Luo Sha stretched out his 5 fingers again and easily chopped off the Black Blood Deacon's 2 arms. Blood flowed all over the ground. Ah! Boom! Another figure, Setting Sun, rushed in and stabbed the chest of the Black Blood Deacon who was holding a long saber. If one were to talk about ruthlessness, these bandits weren't much weaker than these people. What? When the leader saw this scene, he knew that an expert had come. He couldn't stay here for long. However, when he turned around, he saw that a sharp sword was already pointed at his forehead. Killing intent instantly appeared. Chapter 223. It all happened in the blink of an eye. 3 experts had charged into the Mirror Moon Tower. Li Zongjio had left a mark in their souls, so he could clearly sense them when they approached. This should have happened not long ago, and he did not send out any signal. How did they know? But since they were here, he would leave it to them to deal with. He did not have to do it himself. If he had to do everything himself, Li Zongjio would not be able to do it even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. 2 of his subordinates were killed in an instant. They did not even have time to react. The 3 experts locked their auras on the last person. Even if this person had gone through a lot of training, he could not withstand so many murderous experts. I will only ask you once. Or you. Li Zongjio turned around. When it came to killing people like Scything Flax, he was the real ancestor. He did not care about the 2 corpses on the ground at all. From Li Zongjio's eyes, he could see that if his answer did not satisfy him, he would lose his life. We are the Black Blood Deacons under the Di Xian Alliance. In the past, when he announced his name, this person was also full of pride and murderous intent. This name was like a mountain. No matter what kind of situation he was in, it would suppress the other party until they could not breathe. But at this moment, when he revealed his identity, there was a kind of regret and fear. Because if he was not careful, he would be beheaded. Such an outcome was really too terrifying. He did not dare to think further. Black Blood Deacons? What is that? Li Zongjio had never heard of it, but Li Zongjio knew about the Di Xian Merchant Alliance. So you are from the Di Xian Merchant Alliance. You are really brave to take the initiative to provoke me. Li Zongjio also nodded. Since these people wanted to present their necks to him, he wanted to see if Li Zongjio had the guts to make a move. Then, Li Zongjio naturally had to make a move and perform a killing for them to see. Let me go, and I'll let your Li clan escape this calamity, that person said. With his identity, he might really have such strength, but for him, he only needed to win a little bit of trust to give him time to leave this place. Hee, does my Li clan need to flee? Li Zongjio couldn't help but laugh. Take his head. As soon as he finished speaking, Chang'e did not hesitate to chop off his opponent's head. It was too late for him to escape. When his head was chopped off, his eyes were filled with fear and unwillingness. After killing the man, Li Zongjio opened the door. With a clang, the blood-red token fell to the ground. How dare they close the door and do things so arrogantly? Li Zongjio sighed at the arrogance of these people. They just hung a token on the door, and they killed wantonly inside. Such behavior was extremely arrogant in Li Zongjio's eyes. This matter, I'm afraid it's not so simple. Then, Li Zongjio looked into the distance and immediately saw the purple cloud tower. In his previous life, Li Zongjio was a top expert. He was also very sensitive to killing intent. Even if you were 100 meters away, as long as you leaked out a little bit of killing intent, it would be enough to be caught by others. Even experts at Li Zongjio's level had such ability. This was the experience accumulated over many years. Ordinary people could not learn it. At this moment, in the purple cloud tower, a murderous aura was brewing. A large group of assassins sat there. How could it be simple? The three of you take down that restaurant, Li Zongjio said to the three of them. As his voice fell, the three of them moved and rushed toward the purple cloud tower. Boom, boom. Their figures rushed up, and the surroundings felt as if a gust of wind was blowing. With the strength of the three of them, there was probably no one in Flying Cloud City who could stop them. Lin Baoquan was waiting to watch the show in the purple cloud tower. However, just a moment ago, something seemed to have happened. The leader of the Black Blood Deacons beside him could not help but stand up. He frowned and stared in the direction in front of him. It seemed as if he wanted to see something, but in the process, Li Zongjio swaggered out of the Mirror Moon Tower. How is this possible? Lin Baoquan cried out involuntarily. However, as soon as his voice fell, he saw three figures rushing toward the two of them. They discovered them? They were so far away, and they did not even make any movements. How could they be discovered? Could it be that the people inside leaked the news? However, this was also impossible. How could they know about this place? Boom! A powerful airwave swept out. The purple cloud tower had a total of 4 floors. Luo Sha and the other two rushed in one by one. Not good. The leader of the Black Blood Deacons immediately realized that something was wrong. A series of collision sounds had already occurred in the restaurant below. Clang, clang, clang. The golden saber broke, and blood splattered. Countless heads fell to the ground. The purple cloud tower was instantly filled with blood, and the bloody light soared into the sky. The leader of the Black Blood Deacons wanted to take action, but it was too late. When he went down, he saw the heads falling to the ground. The surrounding tables and chairs were also splashed with blood. The purple cloud tower had become a scene of blood-stained elegance. The Di Xian Merchant Alliance had spent a lot of money to cultivate this elite troop. It was a sharp knife that was cultivated. They were all killed in such a short period of time. They were not at the same level at all. These Black Blood Deacons were only at the level of a Yuan Shi. There were 1 or 2 captains who had reached the level of a first-grade Yuan general. However, in front of Luo Sha, they all had the same ending. He easily took the lives of his opponents. In the eyes of Luo Sha and the other two, these people were just ants that could be easily killed. Blood was still dripping from Luo Sha's fingers. Lin Baoquan and the old man in black rushed down. Lin Baochuan's cultivation was at the level of a third-grade Yuan general. If there were so many Black Blood Deacons chasing after him, he could escape even if he had to pay the price of being seriously injured. However, it was almost impossible for him to kill them. However, in the pool of blood in front of him, it could be seen that these people did not have much room to fight back. They were basically crippled. Such a terrifying method was done by the person in front of him. There were a total of 3 people who had just charged over. Apart from that, the people on the 2 lower levels had also been completely wiped out. "You're courting death." The black-clothed old man let out a furious roar. The Black Blood Deacons was his life's work. Now that Luo Sha had destroyed it so easily, it was equivalent to destroying his life's work. It could be said that his life's work had been destroyed as well. "I'm going to kill you." The old man in black roared and his aura instantly exploded. Boom! A 6th-grade Yuan general. To think that they could actually find a level 6 origin general expert in Soaring Cloud City. In the D Shen Merchant Alliance, the old man in black's strength could be ranked in the top 3. However, such strength was still not enough in front of Luo Sha. Luo Sha smiled coldly. His 5 fingers formed a claw and grabbed at the old man in black. Bang! In just 3 moves, the bones in the black-clothed old man's body were almost all broken. Chapter 225. The identity of the old man in black had given Wang He a limited amount of shock. After all, Wang He did not know this old man, let alone that he had the strength of a grade 6 prime general. However, the identity of this Lin Baoquan in front of him could not be any more familiar. He was an influential figure in Flying Cloud City. If the city lord had any major policies, these people would be needed to support them. Lin Baoquan was an extremely successful businessman. Lin Jitong had more than 100 branches in Flying Cloud City. What kind of concept was this? Even if the turnover of one branch was only 10,000, it would still be 1 million in a day. In a month, it would be 30 million. In fact, the price of a grade 2 medicinal herb could reach thousands of gold yuan. One could only imagine the scale of this. At the same time, Lin Baoquan, the hall master of Lin Jitong, was one of the most powerful people in D Shen Merchant Alliance. There were more than 3 directors who were on good terms with him. Those who were not on good terms with him, such as the Mirror Moon Tower Master, were already one of them. There were even rumors that Lin Baoquan would become the next Merchant Alliance chief if there were no accidents. Such a character had actually died so easily. How many things had he missed out on when he was unconscious? Wang He could not help but feel regretful. Li Zongjio had not told Wang He that there were still 40 to 50 corpses in the Purple Cloud Tower. If these corpses were moved out, it would be truly frightening. Perhaps Wang He would have a heart attack at such a young age. In short, Wang He believed in Li Zongjio's strength. He had even killed Lin Baoquan directly. What else did the Li family not dare to do? Li Tianqing and the others killed their way into the Mirror Moon Tower. Knowing that Li Zongjio had escaped, he heaved a sigh of relief. This city is dangerous. Don't act alone, Li Tianqing said with a frown. Li Tianqing said with a frown. He didn't know how many people were targeting them in the Flying Cloud City. If they weren't careful, then everyone would be finished. These people were all waiting to see the Li family get into trouble. When the time comes, they would clean up the Li family as well. It's good that the young master is fine. It's all our fault for not protecting him well. Li Gui said. If he had known earlier, he would have sent someone to follow Li Zongjio. Otherwise, such a situation would not have happened. If there was someone to take care of him on the road, at least he could have used the Li family to settle this matter. Li Tianqing and the others soon found out that Li Zongjio had gotten rid of the 2 directors of the D Shen Merchant Alliance. It was as if he had killed 2 hall masters in a gang. This matter was not simple. If the other party were to pursue her, the Li family would definitely face great pressure. But now that he had killed them, what else could these people do? Li Tianqing wasn't afraid at all. Since the other party had made the first move, there was nothing to be afraid of. Based on what happened today, it looks like the competition between us and the D Shen Merchant Alliance can't be avoided. Tell Bai Luoxue to quickly take action. Even if our opponent is a merchant alliance, we might not necessarily have no chance of victory. At this moment, Li Tianqing was holding a lot of money in his hands. The gold banknotes that Li Zongjio had provided this time were worth more than 1 billion. This money was originally used to bribe the city lord of Northern Medicine City. Now, using it to bribe the forces in Flying Cloud City wasn't a problem at all. Since you have a foundation in this city, I'll use money to pave the way. Isn't it just a head-on confrontation? Who's afraid of who? Since the Mirror Moon Pavilion had been bought by Li Zongjio, the owner of the Mirror Moon Pavilion directly died. Li Tianqing also arranged for an elder to go and handle the handover procedures. Now, it mainly depended on the attitude of the D Shen Merchant Alliance. If the D Shen Merchant Alliance wasn't willing to let go and insisted on fighting, then it would be a real war. However, the D Shen Merchant Alliance itself wasn't very united. Now that a total of 3 directors had died, a lot of things had happened. For example, Lin Jitong had so many businesses. If no one collected the profits generated every day, it would become a mess. As for the forces in the city, Li Zongjio didn't need to worry about them. Everything was handed over to Li Tianqing as the family lord. Whether or not he could lead the family further still depended on Li Tianqing's decision. "Oh right, there's a girl's body in the second basement. Bring her out and bury her properly. In addition, give her family a settlement fee," Li Zongjio said. He instructed Li Gue. Li Gue was also puzzled, but he didn't ask much and did as he was told. "How's Aunt's injury?" Li Zongjio and Li Tianqing walked side by side. Since they were already here, they might as well have a meal in the city. They were usually very busy, so they didn't have the time to eat. Shen Xinxiao was still taking care of things in Guanxi town and couldn't come back in a short period of time. Now, Li Zongjio was the only one who could talk to Li Tianqing. "She's fine now. She'll recover after a few days of rest. We also found a mineral vein under the ruins. It's also Huang Yuan ore, but it's a little longer. It's enough for us to mine for about 10 years. Li Tianqing said. Originally, they thought that they had found an extremely precious mineral vein. In that case, the Li family would be able to make a fortune again. Most importantly, this kind of resource could be used as an industry to stabilize the situation and expand the scale. Making money was secondary. The most important thing was to make the money flow and continue to expand. Otherwise, the billions of gold coins in Li Tianqing's hands would be enough for him to spend. The Li family's expenses could last for at least 100 years. Who would want to work hard for it? However, if that was the case, it could be said that all of this would be wasted. Be prepared for danger in times of peace. Do you want me to get rid of Di Xian Merchant Alliance today? Li Zongjio asked. In Li Zongjio's opinion, Di Xian Merchant Alliance was not a threat at all. Therefore, if Li Zongjio wanted to get rid of them, it would be a piece of cake. Before leaving, it was not impossible for him to help the Li family solve these problems first. This way, the Li family's development would be faster. No need. Di Xian Merchant Alliance has deep roots and has been entrenched in Flying Cloud City for many years. Now that our Li family has just entered, we still need a certain amount of external pressure to truly grow. Li Tianqing said. If Li Zongjio were to directly eliminate the upper echelons of the Di Xian Merchant Alliance, it would naturally allow the Li family to rise rapidly. However, the obstacles they would face on this path would lessen, and the tempering and training they would have to undergo would also lessen. They had to be tempered through blood and fire in order to become a true Iron Man. Li Zongjio was very optimistic about Li Tianqing's words. When are you leaving? Li Tianqing asked. Li Zongjio was already prepared to leave for the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's entrance exam. If he could not make it, he could only wait until next year. The journey there was still a long way to go. These days, he had also made some preparations for the Li family. Tomorrow. Chapter 226. The foundation of the Li family was almost done. The presence of the three of them was enough to form a powerful deterrent. If something really happened, the experts of the Snow Elixir sect would step in. Sect Master Chu Oren couldn't just sit back and do nothing. After all, the Li family had given him a huge gift. No matter what, he owed the Li family a favor. This favor had to be repaid. The Li family and the others had a simple meal in a small noodle restaurant next to the Mirror Moon restaurant. Each person had a bowl of noodles. Including Xiao Ya and the others, there were more than 20 bowls of noodles. Although the Li family and the others didn't seem to be easy to deal with, the owner of the noodle restaurant wasn't worried. These big shots didn't need to make things difficult for small people like them. They just needed to make the noodles well. The next morning, Li Zongjio made a trip back to the Luoxia city. The Luoxia city was peaceful, and there were fewer disputes. The Li family and the Bai family were mainly focused on the distant Flying Cloud City. After taking over Flying Cloud City, it would be easier for them to expand their territory. As for the Sky Tripod City, it was the closest third-grade city. At the same time, it was also the benchmark among the third-grade cities. At this level, there would always be some standards. The Sky Tripod City was the pinnacle of third-grade cities. Just like the Azure Wave Giant City, It was definitely one of the best among the second-grade cities. If a family's business could enter the Sky Tripod City, it would be considered a success. However, countless business alliances could only wander around some small places. Even the Northern Medicine Alliance had never set foot in the Sky Tripod City. Naturally, the Sky Tripod City had become the target of the Li family. It would be a waste of resources if their sights were only limited to a place like Flying Cloud City. Li Zongjio was naturally welcomed back to the Li family in the Luoxia city. However, a piece of bad news reached Li Zongjio's ears. Wang Jing has left? For Li Zongjio, this news was a bit shocking and a bit of a blow. Wang Jing had actually left without a word. Could it be that the path of his brother in his previous life was different in this life? However, Li Zongjio quickly felt relieved after thinking about it. Wang Jing had been fighting all over the place since he was a child. Last time, it could be said that he had exposed his strength. Although the Li family had a certain degree of concealment, it was not absolutely safe. He had to leave on the spot. Therefore, Wang Jing's departure was a good thing for the Li family. Wang Jing had offended too many people. It could be said that even Li Zongjio was not as good as him. It was obvious that Li Yun was extremely reluctant. Even when she found the farewell letter, she was at a loss and panicked. The standards of the Li family disciples had also improved greatly during this period of time. Compared to their previous year of hard work, Wang Jing's progress was much greater. However, Wang Jing had left halfway through teaching. Li Yun was originally very happy to see the talent of her family's disciples being stimulated. But now, he couldn't find a powerful person to teach them. Don't panic. Although your talent is ordinary, as long as you practice hard, you will definitely have a breakthrough. Li Zongjio comforted the disciples in this way. Li Yun was speechless when she heard this. This young master was really good at conveying positive energy. Just this sentence alone had hit the fragile hearts of many. But when Wang Jing left, he left behind this book. Li Yun said. She took out a yellowed book and handed it to Li Zongjio. When Li Zongjio saw the yellowed book, his pupils shrank. He almost couldn't believe it. The significance of this book for Wang Jing was simply unimaginable. Even when he was eating or defecating, Wang Jing would take this book with him. It never left his side. What was written in this book was Wang Jing's understanding of alchemy and some of his usual cultivation methods. It could be said that this book recorded most of Wang Jing's wisdom. When Wang Jing became famous in the future, just this book alone was enough to make the major forces go crazy. In fact, it was even possible for them to kill each other and fight each other until their heads bled. Since he gave this book to you, you should keep it well. I will. Li Zongjio nodded. Since Wang Jing had left, there was no need to delay any longer. Originally, he wanted to come back to pack his things and say goodbye to Wang Jing. Since Wang Jing had left, there was no need to wait. It had been a few months since his reincarnation. The increase in his strength was considered to be rather slow. What's more, Li Zongjio had to master these two elemental arts. It wasn't easy to improve his strength. White God Fu, ancient golden tyrant body art. All of them needed to go through hellish training to be able to improve. Li Yun found Li Zongjio. She thought that Li Zongjio had come back this time to take charge, but looking at Li Zongjio's appearance, it seemed that he was going to leave directly. You're leaving? Yes. Li Zongjio nodded. I'm going to participate in the assessment of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. I want to enter their library and find some secret alchemy books for you. Li Zongjio looked at Li Yun, who was a little depressed, and couldn't help but say. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, Li Yun couldn't help but laugh. Kid, you're quite naughty. Are you happy to be naughty? She said it as if he had already entered Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Take care of your own safety. Don't get into conflict with others easily outside. In Luoxia City, there's a family. But outside, there's only you. You have to be careful. If something goes wrong, turn around and run. It's not shameful. Staying alive is the most important thing. Li Yun couldn't help but exhort. Li Zongjio scratched his head. Why did these words sound like the words of a mother? But it was the most ordinary and sincere worry and concern that made Li Zongjio feel the warmth of a family. This was also the reason why Li Zongjio spent so much effort to protect the Li family, to arm the Li family, and to let the Li family have the ability to survive. The feelings between family members couldn't be faked. Of course, there were scums. For example, Li Changjiang. Li Zongjio still didn't know where Li Zongjio, who had one of his arms chopped off, was hiding. But Li Zongjio definitely wanted to kill this person personally. In fact, it was very easy to find a person in the Xingyan dynasty. Heavenly Rain Pavilion. There were branches in all the big third-class cities. The intelligence of Heavenly Rain Pavilion was like a huge net that fell from the sky and recorded everyone's information. Even Li Zongjio's troubles in Luoxia City had probably been recorded by Heavenly Rain Pavilion. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had reached the peak because he knew about the background of Heavenly Rain Pavilion. Even the dynasty couldn't be touched. Heavenly Rain Pavilion was very law-abiding and they would never cross some boundaries. Chapter 227. He left Luoxia City. From Luoxia City, they headed towards the north. The first third-class city he passed was Kong City. It was about 800 miles away from Luoxia City. The disciple of Fog Snow Pill sect, Yang Hongyu, was a member of the Yang family in Kong City. However, Yang Hongyu was not an important disciple of the Yang family. The competition between these big families was quite fierce and dangerous. Therefore, people like Yang Hongyu, who was weak, would be sent away early to avoid being accidentally injured in the process. Otherwise, if something were to happen, it would be too late for regrets. Since he had already sent them away, he had also made his attitude clear. As long as they were obedient, and considering that they were related by blood, he would not be ruthless to them. No one would want a murderous maniac to be their leader. After spending 2 days on the road, Li Zongjio rode a fast horse into Kong City's courier station. The horses were rented from this courier station. After paying a deposit, one could rent horses from various courier stations. These horses had a mark on them and they could be returned when the time came. After all, there was no need to buy a fast horse for a short journey. In Li Zongjio's opinion, this method was very smart. Of course, this courier station was personally managed by the Xingyan dynasty. If the horse was lost, the deposit would naturally be deducted. Those who rented the horses were just small fries. With their strength, they would not dare to go against the Saint Flame Empire. They would be annihilated in a matter of minutes. You came from Luoxia City? That's strange. Someone came from that kind of place. The courier station took the horse and glanced at the mark on the horse's back. The information on it was clear. This horse came from Luoxia City. In the eyes of outsiders, Luoxia City was almost at the edge of the world. What could there be in such a borderland? There might not even be a proper hotel or inn on this street. In such a remote place, there was actually a handsome young man. This young man did not look like a country bumpkin. It was interesting. The deposit of 200 silver coins will be returned to you. The other 99 silver coins are the rental fee. You did not ride for 3 days. There is no discount. Hey, why did you leave? The courier station staff chased out but found that Li Zongjio had already gone far. In Li Zongjio's opinion, this small deposit was useless and a waste of time. Kong City was bustling with people and carriages. The pedestrians on the road were dressed more dignified. There was a gap in quality. There were many things on the road. Some acrobatic groups liked to show off their skills on the street. Some people who had cultivated a little bit of origin energy were able to do some shocking things. For example, they could take a deep breath and allow the spear tip to pierce through their throat without piercing through them. Needless to say, they could break a stone. Many people were just there to watch the show. After passing through the bustling streets of Kong City, Li Zongjio walked directly to a tall, domed building. Inside this domed building was the most common and most well-hidden power on the continent. Rain Tower. Rain Tower was a place for information exchange. Here, all kinds of information could be exchanged. However, to obtain this information, one had to pay a certain amount of money. Many people would start from the Rain Pavilion if they wanted to recruit or kill someone. As long as one could afford the price, even killers could be hired. Li Zongjio walked into the Heavenly Rain Pavilion. The exterior of Rain Tower was basically the same. It was very iconic. From the outside, it looked like a bun. The interior hall was extremely spacious. Once there was a gathering order, it would be overcrowded. Rain Tower announced to the public that it could accommodate up to 20,000 people at a time. It could connect with up to 50 groups and individuals at the same time. Their efficiency was much higher than that of some banks. Some banks were very fast if one wanted to deposit money. However, if one wanted to withdraw money, one had to line up obediently. In terms of service, it was especially bad. Rain Tower only opened 5 windows today. Many people were lining up in front to hand over their business. High up in the hall, there was a recommendation on the front page. Anyone could do these missions. However, if one wanted to hand in the mission, they had to line up. It was first come, first served. Li Zongjio glanced at it and walked in a direction. He walked in front of a person. That person reached out and stopped Li Zongjio. "Sorry, friend. If you want to connect, please line up first." Li Zongjio did not say anything. He took out 100,000 yuan banknote. This banknote was worth 100,000 gold yuan. When he saw the number on it, the person who stopped Li Zongjio's eyes lit up. "So it's a VIP. This way, please." After receiving the banknote, he immediately became enthusiastic. The gloomy expression on his face disappeared. He turned around and led Li Zongjio to the VIP room. Although Li Zongjio could still enter after killing him, to be honest, if he were to start a fight with the Celestial Rain Pavilion now, the Li family would be annihilated once again. There was nowhere to run. After all, he was a seller of information. Seeing Li Zongjio enter the VIP passage, the crowd started to complain. The crowd that was still queuing up also let out a bit of noisy grumbling. "Damn it. Why did that gigolo go in first? How dare he?" "You better shut up. That's the VIP passageway, used to entertain distinguished guests." "What VIPs? So what if you're rich? It's just some stinky money. If you have the ability, fight one-on-one." The person in front turned around to look at the nearly 2-meter-tall guy with huge muscles on his chest. He swallowed his saliva. In the end, he did not say anything. What was the connection between money and a one-on-one? He swallowed his words back down. Although he was unhappy, there was nothing he could do. The other party was rich and had special privileges. While he was unhappy, the other party had already started to talk. Inside the VIP room, there was a separate reception room. Tea was placed on the table and the chairs were all carved out of mahogany. The texture and feel of the chairs were very rich. "This is the manager of Rain Tower." When the door opened, an old man walked in. This old man had heard that this young man, Li Zongjio, used 100,000 gold yuan banknote as a bargaining chip. There were very few people who were so generous with their money. This was a really big business deal. Chapter 228. The Rain Tower was also divided into different levels. However, it was definitely not a simple matter to be able to attract a supervisor in this tower. Hello. You can just call me Old Cheng." When Supervisor Cheng walked in, he had an extremely warm smile on his face. His eyes were also sizing up Li Zongjio. Although Li Zongjio's clothes were simple and he did not wear any expensive accessories, he gave people a feeling of dominance when he sat on the chair. He was clearly an old general, a high and mighty king. How could such a young man exude such an aura? Old Cheng couldn't believe it either. At the same time, he also knew that Li Zongjio's identity was definitely not simple. They had been dealing with intelligence all their lives. They could roughly see what kind of person he was and what kind of identity he had. The nobility and arrogance in his bones could not be concealed. "I need a person's whereabouts." Li Zongjio did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. It was really beneath his status to be polite to a supervisor in such a small place. Therefore, Li Zongjio also directly told him about this matter. "Who is it?" Supervisor Cheng took out a pen and paper. He listened and recorded at the same time. "Li Changjiang from the Li family of Luoxia City." Li Zongjio said indifferently. "Luoxia City?" Supervisor Cheng wrote on the paper. When he saw this name, he felt a little unfamiliar. However, he quickly recalled that Luoxia City was a very remote city. What kind of person could come from such a place? No problem. If the person is still in Dinghuan province and is still alive, we will receive news in 2 days. Supervisor Cheng said. No matter who it was, no matter what the person's identity was, it was not important. The price of tracking the person's whereabouts was based on the degree of secrecy of the person's whereabouts. If the other party had an expert to help cover for him, or if there were some accidents in the process of tracking, the price would be different. I will stay in the city. If there is any news, inform me immediately. This is the deposit. Li Zongjio took out 10 banknotes worth 100,000 gold coins. This was 1,000,000 gold coins. Supervisor Cheng's eyes lit up when he saw this. If this information couldn't be turned into reality and couldn't be exchanged with useful people, then it would just be a piece of information. Therefore, every supervisor had their own performance targets every month. These information had to be sold, but the real big business was very rare. Most of the time, it would become a place where people would search for their lover for many years, or where abducted children would come to look for their relatives after they grew up. How much money could these trivial matters earn? Although they were only looking for a person from Luoxia City, Supervisor Cheng's many years of experience made him keenly sniff out that there must be some signs of making money. Perhaps there would be a lot more involved. The deposit rule had also been set by the Rain Pavilion. After all, no one was willing to make a losing deal. If you want to find someone, you have to pay the cost first. Otherwise, if you don't give me a single cent, how am I going to buy information? If you were looking for someone in Dinghuan province, the price would only be a little more than 1,000,000 gold coins. If you were looking for someone in Kwa province, the price would be even more expensive. Usually, the price would be 4 or 5 times higher than the price. Don't worry, leave this to the Rain Pavilion. Li Zongjio stood up and left. He only stayed for a few minutes. Supervisor Cheng looked at the money in his hand and smacked his lips in satisfaction. Such a god of fortune, you should give me a few every month. But then his eyes became sharp, and he entered an extremely professional state. Quickly go and investigate this person's whereabouts. Hurry. Yes, Supervisor. A few people took the note in Supervisor Cheng's hand and went to investigate. Li Zongjio, on the other hand, found a place to stay. The most famous thing in Kong City was naturally Yuan Qi. After meditating on the bed for a while, he opened his eyes. It will take a long time for me to make a breakthrough in this state of cultivation. Li Zongjio also understood the power of these 2 Dragon Clan elemental arts. If it wasn't for some extreme circumstances, it would be impossible to cultivate them well. I wonder if there are any Yuan Qi auxiliary cultivation Yuan Qi. Li Zongjio thought. The price of auxiliary Yuan Qi depended on the situation. If it had an extremely powerful auxiliary effect, the price would even exceed that of an ordinary offensive Yuan Qi. In terms of essence artifacts, it was a huge category. However, in the end, it still had to return to the body. Therefore, the use of cultivation was the most important. Although he only meditated for a while, when he opened his eyes, it was already night time. He asked the owner of the inn. If he wanted to buy some genuine and high-quality Yuan Qi, he would have to go to a place called Golden Origin Street. This street was filled with shops that sold Yuan tools. Moreover, the quality of the Yuan tools was also passable. This was especially true for a few of the larger shops. The quality of the Yuan tools was also guaranteed. However, the price of the Yuan tools would be higher than other shops. Although the price was high, the Yuan Qi was used to fight to the death. No one would want the Yuan Qi in their hands to suddenly drop the chain when they were fighting for their lives. That would be equivalent to giving away one's life for nothing. If one wanted to find treasures, they would have to go in the opposite direction. About 20 streets away, there was a night market. There were all sorts of people there, and there might be some dirty goods. Although the origin of the goods was not clean, they were definitely very powerful. Of course, there were also shoddy goods. Everything depended on one's eyesight. If one was deceived, one could only say that one deserved it. There was no guarantee for anything here. One could choose not to believe a single word that the seller said. However, for an ordinary person, It was very difficult for them to have a firm will and resist such bewitching words. After Li Zongjio heard this, he directly walked towards the night market. Li Zongjio knew very well what kind of goods the shops on Golden Origin Street had. Even if they had the best craftsmanship, there might not be anything that could satisfy Li Zongjio. Therefore, Li Zongjio also headed towards the night market to search. Perhaps there might be some unexpected gains and surprises. When Li Zongjio walked past the 20 streets and arrived at the night market, he felt that the surrounding was filled with stalls. He could not help but think that it might be a mistake to come here. However, since he was already here, he might as well walk around first. Chapter 229. From the beginning to the end, it would take about an hour to walk. There were open stalls on both sides of the street. The stall owners would spread a blanket on the ground and place the items they wanted to sell on it. Then they would wait for people to take the bait. Some of the more diligent ones would even shout loudly to sell their items. Fresh Level 3 Elemental Beast Egg. The elemental beast will hatch randomly. Come and grab it. First come, first served. 5 million gold coins for one egg. Once sold out. Top grade ores, fire crystals. Definitely first-class goods. Come if you have good eyes. Shall buy, please take a detour. Bring your own price. Once sold out, leave. A mountain eagle feather arrow set. If you need it, hurry and take it away. Sharp weapon for killing. You will definitely die once you see blood. Killing without leaving a trace. There were all sorts of shouts. Li Zongjio took a look at the elemental beast egg. How was it an elemental beast egg? It was obviously an ordinary elemental beast egg. However, the aura of level 3 elemental beasts had been integrated into the elemental beast egg. It made people feel that this thing was not simple. But in the end, whether it could hatch or not was a problem. With Li Zongjio's eyesight, he could see through it at a glance. Other than that, those were fire crystal stones, and other random things. Most of them were fake. These people's forgery standards were top-notch. There were quite a few people who were interested. After all, they flattered that in the night market, everything was possible. However, they did not know that this possibility was so small that it could even be ignored. Because if you had a possibility, the other party might have already taken it away. What was left behind was only some impossible things. This was obviously Cheat Street. Just as Li Zongjio was preparing to go back the way he came, Li Zongjio suddenly felt that the elemental bead in his body seemed to be trembling slightly. Although the trembling was incomparably light and ordinary people might just treat it as a stomachache or an elemental energy fluctuation and ignore it. However, Li Zongjio was very clear that the fluctuation came from within his body. There was something in the surroundings that made the elemental energy in his body interested. Li Zongjio didn't know what other people's innate original spirits were like and what it felt like to possess them. However, Li Zongjio knew that although he could control the power of the original spirit in his body, it had not completely integrated with him. In his previous life, Li Zongjio also possessed the power of elemental soul, but the feeling between the two was different. The power of this origin spirit was formed by the sovereign dragon soul of his previous life. Therefore, Li Zongjio paid special attention to this. Even if there was the slightest movement, he would be aware of it. Not the 3 great origin spirits. Could it be that there's another origin spirit in my body? When Li Zongjio's mind power swept past his own origin bead, he discovered that those 3 origin spirits were also incomparably calm, without any fluctuations appearing. It really is you, Dark Dragon Soul. The corners of Li Zongjio's mouth curled into a cold smile. It was impossible for the Dark Dragon Soul to disappear into thin air. In the vicinity, there must be something that the Dark Dragon Soul was interested in. Therefore, the Dark Dragon Soul could not help but emit a trace of fluctuation. However, this trace of fluctuation was captured by Li Zongjio. In the vicinity, there was something that the Dark Dragon Soul was interested in. Li Zongjio looked around. In the end, he locked his gaze onto a stall in a dark corner. There were not many things placed on the stall. There was a piece of black opaque crystal that looked like a diamond. Although it looked bright and mysterious, in reality, This stone did not have any elemental energy fluctuations. Apart from looking good, there was nothing else about it. This kind of thing was usually placed here to deceive little children. Some people who wanted to find treasures would think that this stone was some kind of treasure. Just the radiance on the surface was already dazzling enough. It must be some kind of treasure. Other than that, there were a few old scrolls and a piece of parchment. As for the stall owner, his entire body was covered in a black robe. In addition to the darkness, he couldn't see anything clearly. He could only see a pair of eyes. In his eyes, there was a pure murderous aura. This murderous aura did not spread out. It was just as calm as a pool of spring water. However, if someone really provoked this person and triggered this murderous aura, it would be the birth of a disaster. It was this murderous aura that caused some people with good eyesight to not dare to step forward. How was this selling things? It was clearly buying one's life. After Li Zongjio locked onto this stall, he strode over. Many people saw Li Zongjio's actions and their eyes were filled with ridicule. They had already seen the people in this stall before. They knew how ruthless their methods were. Even the passers-by had to pay a painful price for their actions. When the stall owner saw someone approaching, he slowly closed his eyes. "Don't touch if you're not buying," the stall owner said indifferently. However, just as the stall owner finished speaking, he saw Li Zongjio take the black crystal in his hand and carefully examine it. Obsidian crystal. There should be an extremely tyrannical dark flame energy hidden within. As long as you can break the defense on the surface, you will be able to draw out the energy within. The stall owner's voice sounded. Li Zongjio did not care. Instead, he felt the vibration of the origin pearl in his body. Although the black dragon soul in the origin pearl was trying its best to suppress him, Li Zongjio could clearly feel it. "Let's see where you can run to." Li Zongjio's lips curled into a cold smile. The doubts that had been plaguing him for so long were finally solved. He originally thought that the black dragon soul was accidentally damaged during his transmigration. After all, anything could happen. However, it seemed that the energy was still in his body. It was just that the black dragon soul was good at hiding and hid itself. "How much?" Li Zongjio asked. His tone was firm and decisive. Obviously, he was telling the stall owner that he wanted this item. After the stall owner heard this, he sneered in his heart. "You are the one who asked me to name a price. Since you can't wait, then this price he." 2. The stall owner stretched out 2 fingers and said indifferently, "Stop pretending to be mysterious. Speak human language." Li Zongjio frowned. These people wanted to pretend to be profound in front of him. Li Zongjio was not a fool. He just did not want to waste time and energy. To him, there was no benefit in arguing with such people. The stall owner obviously did not expect to be choked by Li Zongjio. However, he quickly regained his senses. 200 million gold coins in cash. Chapter 230. The 2 fingers were placed there as if he was provoking Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's face immediately darkened. Although this was a night market, it felt more like a black market. In this black market, there were only benefits and no feelings. Therefore, it didn't matter if the price was a little higher. However, the person in front of him was clearly treating Li Zongjio as a fat sheep to be slaughtered. "Since you have taken it, you have to buy it. If you dirty it, it will affect my second sale," the person said slowly. After he finished speaking, he raised his head and looked at Li Zongjio. His eyes were full of threat. He was clearly threatening Li Zongjio. At this moment, Li Zongjio finally understood that this person was not selling at all. He was taking the opportunity to extort. "So, you are here to extort me?" Li Zongjio said calmly. He looked at the person in front of him calmly, revealing a faint trace of murderous intent. Just this murderous intent alone was enough to make the stall owner's hair stand on end. He could not help but shiver. He looked at the young man in front of him and was puzzled. Who released the murderous intent? Could it be this young man in front of him? How could this be? This young man could not possibly have such a strong murderous intent. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, the stall owner pointed to a small sign beside him. On it was written, "Do not touch if you don't buy." It meant that if you touched it, you had to buy it. "Oh, Li Zongjio said after glancing at it. Then he stuffed it into his bosom. If you chase after me, I will kill you. Li Zongjio stared into the stall owner's eyes and said indifferently. Originally, the stall owner wanted to laugh at this kid who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. However, when he saw Li Zongjio's eyes, he froze on the spot. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a single word. This kind of gaze seemed ordinary, but behind that gaze, there was an endless storm of slaughter brewing. The blood had already filled the stall owner's heart. Therefore, looking at this pair of eyes, it was an endless sea of blood. When he came back to his senses, he was already covered in cold sweat. Li Zongjio's figure was already far away. The stall owner wanted to get up and chase after Li Zongjio. After all, this arrogant young man actually took his things. This was robbery. How dare he rob in broad daylight? It was fine if he robbed others, but he dared to rob a cold-blooded killer. He had been in this business for many years and had used this kind of method to oppress countless people. Forcing them to hand over their money was a huge sum that no one could afford. That was why this kind of situation happened. Most importantly, the other party's strength was not as good as the stall owner in front of him. Even if he reported this to the city lord mansion, the city management office and so on, there was nothing they could do. It was written clearly on the note. It was just that the stall owner did not see it. Such an overbearing clause might be useless in other places, but here, it all depended on the stall owner's freedom. He wanted to get up and chase after this arrogant kid and take him down. However, he found that his body was already frozen on the spot. It was extremely difficult for him to get up. He could not stand at all. How is this possible? With just a glance, he was able to bring about such a serious threat. This caused the stall owner to be in disbelief. After thinking over and over again, he seemed to be struggling in his heart. Forget it. Anyway, that stone is not worth much. I admit defeat this time. In the end, with this thought, he temporarily released the pressure in his heart. If he really chased after him, he had a premonition that he would not be able to go home tonight. It was this crazy and terrifying premonition. The other party was just a teenager who looked not even 18 years old. He had been in this business for so many years, but in the end he was still afraid of this kid. Phew! The stall owner gave up chasing and just sat on the spot. However, the moment he gave up chasing, he felt his whole body relax and no longer felt any pressure. Little did he know that the audacious stall owner could live until now because of Li Zongjio's mercy. If it was the evil Lord Li Zongjio in the past, when he found out that this kid dared to blackmail him, blood would definitely splatter everywhere. There was nothing to say about that. Otherwise, you would not know what it meant to be ruthless and not to be provoked. Li Zongjio was such a ruthless existence. However, after being reborn in this life, Li Zongjio had become much more refined. This was because he was no longer alone. He had the whole Li family behind him. If it was in the past, even if I am not your opponent now, I will just run away and hide to cultivate. When I am strong enough, I will come back and kill you. Some of the people who had set up stalls in the surroundings also looked at this scene in astonishment. One must know that the stall owner Li Zongjio just went to was such a shameless scoundrel. In addition, with his own strength, it was possible for him to do anything. He actually let Li Zongjio take away the item so easily. He did not dare to chase after him, as if he was frightened. This strange scene was a little shocking to ordinary people. Either the stall owner was strange, or there was something strange about this kid in front of them. In short, there was a dangerous aura around these two people. It was better not to provoke such an inexplicable person. Li Zongjio walked all the way back to his inn. When he closed the door of his room, he also took out the black crystal in his hand. Then, let me see what you have in there. Li Zongjio injected a surge of yuan power into the black crystal. Immediately, the black crystal began to heat up and shine. In just a moment, the surface of the black crystal seemed to be scorched, and the fragments kept peeling off. Just as he was about to touch the core, Li Zongjio could clearly feel that the origin pearl in his body suddenly erupted with a dark aura. This dark energy instantly gushed out from the origin pearl and continuously devoured Li Zongjio's body. The aura that suddenly erupted seemed to want to occupy Li Zongjio's body. It directly emerged from his palms from within his body. This dark yuan power transformed into a furious dragon and directly pounced on the black crystal in his hand. Just as it was about to bite, it was a hand that was filled with terrifying essence energy, instantly grabbing the furious dragon formed by the darkness essence energy in his hand. Chapter 231. You dare to be impudent in front of me? If I could kill you once in my previous life, you won't be able to do the same in this life. At this moment, Li Zongjiu's evil lord's aura bloomed vigorously. It instantly suppressed the small black dragon in front of him. The black dragon seemed to want to struggle. The dark dragon soul was the most difficult to deal with among the 4 supreme dragon souls in his previous life. This was because the dark dragon sovereign was extremely cunning and treacherous. Moreover, the ability it possessed was also very strange. This caused Li Zongjiu to pay a heavy price before he could kill the dark dragon sovereign. Some people said that Li Zongjiu killed the 4 supreme dragon souls for his own selfish desires in order to break through. They said that he was immoral and killed the innocent. However, Li Zongjiu said that he was right. What can you do? Only strength is right. Other than that, everything else is just a lie. Now that Li Zongjiu had returned with the power of the 4 supreme dragon souls, only the dark dragon soul did not provide any help. Obviously, the dark dragon soul must be hiding. If Li Zongjiu was not careful, it was very likely that he would be devoured by the dark dragon soul. At that time, the dark dragon soul would occupy this body, and not Li Zongjiu's soul. It was normal for the dark dragon soul to do such a ruthless thing. The dark dragon soul was caught in Li Zongjiu's hand. At this moment, the dark dragon soul was indeed in an extremely weak state. In this state, Li Zongjiu could easily kill the dark dragon soul. However, it would be too wasteful if he did that. In the past, I didn't know how to use the white god Fu. Li Zongjiu's lips curled into a cold smile. As the white god Fu operated, Li Zongjiu's mental power was also rapidly condensing. The dark dragon soul continued to struggle, releasing terrifying dark elemental energy, corroding Li Zongjiu's elemental energy. However, the power of the dark dragon soul came from Li Zongjiu. How could it defeat Li Zongjiu? The white piece is set. Li Zongjiu's mind power turned into a white chess piece and suddenly fell towards the dark dragon soul. To ordinary people, this was an extremely simple mental attack. However, in the eyes of the dark dragon soul, that white chess piece was like a towering mountain range that came crashing down. The ancient and boundless qi that swirled around the white chess piece completely sealed the dark dragon soul within it. As for these living beings in the soul state, they had no resistance at all. Just like that, it was suppressed so easily. Roar! With a powerless roar, the power of the dark dragon soul finally turned into pure energy and flowed back into Li Zongjiu's body. A pitch-black pattern suddenly appeared on Li Zongjiu's origin pearl. The power contained in this pattern was the power of the dark dragon soul. A sinister and ruthless aura gradually rose from Li Zongjiu's body. The power system of the dark dragon soul was incomparably dark and mysterious. It was like an invisible death god that could appear at your side at any time. Now, it had been refined by Li Zongjiu and officially become the power of Li Zongjiu's origin spirit. It was all thanks to the crystal in his hand that Li Zongjiu was able to find this guy's weakness in such a short period of time and find it out. Although the battle ended quickly, in reality, the danger just now was only a hair's breadth away. If Li Zongjiu had not been able to subdue the dark dragon soul, Li Zongjiu would have been the one to die. Fortunately, Li Zongjiu's strength was enough. However, that attack had consumed all of Li Zongjiu's mental strength. Therefore, Li Zongjiu did not take out the crystal to study. Instead, he took an elixir and meditated to recover his origin power and mental strength. After this consumption, he also needed to replenish his energy. This black crystal was definitely out of the ordinary, and it was bound to come with a risk. The sky gradually brightened. Li Zongjiu sat on the edge of the bed and felt that his white god Fu seemed to have improved a little. The heavenly void god record and the ancient tyrant golden body had entered the second level. However, the white god Fu was still stuck at the first level. After last night's battle, The sturdy barrier of the first level had begun to show signs of loosening. Looks like I just need to put in a little more effort to break through to the second level. Then, my mental strength will also become stronger. For an alchemist, this little bit of effort was naturally enough to refine an elixir. As it was still early, Li Zongjio took out the black crystal once again. After refining the dark dragon soul, Li Zongjio had a better understanding of the item in front of him. I didn't expect that person to not be bragging. This item is indeed worth 200 million. Li Zongjio observed for a while and said. However, based on the strength of the person last night, he could not be sure. In reality, this crystal was indeed as he said. This was a legendary obsidian crystal. Within it, there was a wisp of dark flame. The name of this flame was obsidian fire. Not to mention that a phoenix could be reborn in fire, this dark dragon soul could also be reborn. Within the obsidian stone, there was an extinguished obsidian fire seed. If the obsidian fire seed wanted to reignite, it would require the power of darkness. If the dark dragon soul wanted to revive, it would also require the power of the obsidian fire seed. If the two were to combine, it wouldn't take long for the dark dragon soul to be reborn. However, it was a pity that he met Li Zongjio at this time. This obsidian crystal could only be found by chance. If he missed this opportunity, he did not know how many years it would be before he could find it again. As Li Zongjio's strength increased, he would definitely be able to find the hidden dark dragon soul. At that time, it would still be a dead end. This time, he wanted to take a risk, but now, it seemed that he had failed. He understood how terrifying the power within this obsidian crystal was. Li Zongjio was also extremely excited. Obsidian fire. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had suffered a lot because of this fire. This fire could incinerate the soul. Once touched, the soul would be burned and the pain would be incomparable. It was because of this terrifying effect that Li Zongjio, who had the dark dragon soul in his body, could also control the power of the obsidian fire in his current life. Since that's the case, let me see just how powerful you are. Li Zongjio was a little impatient. When one's cultivation reached the primitive emperor realm, or even the sovereign realm, he did not care about external injuries. Only by mastering a powerful soul attack could people be afraid of him. Once the soul power was damaged, unless it was some extremely special elixir, it would be extremely difficult to recover. In his previous life, Li Zongjio was sought after because Li Zongjio had the elixir formula to recover soul power. Therefore, a large number of experts followed Li Zongjio and were willing to be at Li Zongjio's beck and call. He circulated the power of the dark yuan runes in his body and quietly poured it into the black crystal in his hand. Suddenly, a crisp cracking sound could be heard. Crack. Chapter 232. The black crystal shattered into pieces. Then, a dark green bead emerged from it. This bead was only about half the size of a fingernail. It didn't seem to have anything special about it. However, when Li Zongjio's dark elemental energy surged out and landed on the bead emitted a ray of light. Buzz. As the light surged out, one could feel that the bead was emitting heat. Li Zongjio carefully stared at the bead in his hand. Within the bead, there seemed to be some kind of energy that was constantly erupting. Throughout the entire process, he could clearly feel that a life force was being born. Crack. Boom. In less than 3 seconds, the bead shattered. At the same time, a weak flame appeared in the palm of his hand. This swaying light was just like a strand of hair. Although it was extremely small, Li Zongjio could clearly feel the terrifying energy coming from it. Such pure energy! Li Zongjio sucked in a breath of cold air. To be able to hold such power in his hand, if he shook it slightly and it fell onto his body, he wouldn't be able to wash it off even if he jumped into a river. This obsidian fire must be refined with mental energy. Li Zongjio read the refining method from the memories of the Dark Dragon Soul. To be honest, when he found out about this method, Li Zongjio even suspected that the Dark Dragon Soul wanted to kill him behind his back, so it left behind such a method. After all, once this thing invaded his soul, it would definitely devour Li Zongjio's soul. Mental energy was the soul of a living person. If Li Zongjio died, This mental energy would turn into soul power and exist. The premise was that it was strong enough, or there was a special force guiding it. This strand of flame was as thin as a strand of hair. It seemed weak, but if it touched one's body, it would definitely burn one to ashes in an instant, bathing one's soul in this flame. If one wasn't careful, one's soul might be burned to ashes by the flames. Come. How could Li Zongjio retreat at this moment? With the support of the 4 dragon souls in his body, he didn't believe that he couldn't subdue this wisp of flame. Immediately, Li Zongjio released his spiritual power and infused the power into it. Boom! When the mind power came into contact with the flame in his hand, the white chess piece formed by the mind power suddenly burned with a raging flame. Li Zongjio immediately felt like he was being devoured by the flames. It was as if he had arrived in hell in an instant. Even so, Li Zongjio was still concealing his spirit and qi. He sat cross-legged on the bed without moving. The wisp of blue fire spread throughout his body, causing Li Zongjio great pain. Li Zongjio also knew that if his mental energy was completely burned away by this flame, it would mean that he would be dead for sure. Therefore, Li Zongjio had to maintain a strong mental strength. Since that's the case, let me see how strong your flame is. Li Zongjio snorted coldly in his heart. Since you want to fight with me, I'll fight with you until the end. Li Zongjio immediately activated his mental strength. He had to consume all of this power in order to refine this flame origin. This way, Li Zongjio would be able to control this power. In order to obtain this powerful power, he naturally had to pay a certain price. This raging flame burned his soul for an entire day and night. When Li Zongjio opened his eyes again, there seemed to be a flash of fire in his eyes. The aura in the distance seemed to have been ignited by Li Zongjio's eyes. The obsidian flame was hidden in his own mental strength. Li Zongjio was even more surprised. After a day and night of torment, it was actually him who had allowed his white god Fu to break through to the 2nd level. As for his current mental state, it had directly merged with the flame from the white chess piece. The obsidian flame had become the embodiment of Li Zongjio's mental state. As he opened his palm, a wisp of flame danced in his palm. Li Zongjio looked at the flame in his hand, his eyes reflecting the pitch-black flame. The obsidian flame was still weak. Although it had merged with Li Zongjio's mental strength, it still needed time to slowly nurture it before it could become a powerful force that could be controlled by Li Zongjio. Although it's still in its embryonic form, its power is comparable to the strength of a Sky Origin ancestor's Yuan energy. Li Zongjio was shocked. This was only the beginning. If it already possessed such power, it meant that its starting point was very high. Refining the obsidian flame would also help Li Zongjio break through his mental strength. This was the most surprising part. The obsidian flame that I spent so much effort refining has only broken through to the 2nd level of the white god Fu. It seems like it will be even more difficult to continue improving. If he wanted to improve quickly, the most reliable way besides using elixirs was to find Yuan stones that could temper his mental strength. This way, his cultivation speed would increase by leaps and bounds. However, such primordial stones were extremely expensive. It was not something that ordinary people could afford. Why am I sitting on the floor? Li Zongjio glanced at the bed. It turned out that the flames that Li Zongjio had released last night had burned a hole in the bed and caused him to sit on the floor. Just like that, a hole had been burned into the bed. Knock, knock, knock. There was a series of knocks on the door. Come in. Li Zongjio waved his hand and opened the door. The person who came in was the waiter. Sir, the Lord of the Sky Rain Pavilion has called for you. He said that the things you wanted have arrived. Li Zongjio nodded. 2.5 days had passed and it would be the 3rd day soon. The Sky Rain Pavilion should have finished preparing the things. I got it. Li Zongjio had never let go of the matter of chasing after Su Changjiang. This guy would definitely be a disaster if he kept him alive. His father was unwilling to be so ruthless because of their relationship. However, Li Zongjio knew how vicious Li Changjiang was. Furthermore, one of his hands had been chopped off. He would definitely hate the Li family. How could such a person be kept alive? Sir, your bed, you have to pay for it. The waiter saw that there was a hole in the bed behind Li Zongjio. At first, he thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. However, when he took a closer look, he realized that it was indeed burned by Li Zongjio. In this inn, there would often be some strange people cultivating here. Then, the room would catch fire from time to time. Usually, there would be some things on the side to put out the fire. This kind of situation was common. Keep the change. Li Zongjio directly threw out 100,000 gold coin banknote. This was the epitome of wealth. This bed didn't cost more than a few dozen gold yuan, but Li Zongjio had actually given 100,000 gold yuan. Only Li Zongjio could do such a thing. When the waiter received this huge sum of money, he was so scared that he almost knelt on the ground. No one around knew about such a huge sum of money. He could just hide it and pay for the bed. Then, everything would be easy to deal with. 100,000 gold coins was enough to build a house in his hometown. Such a casual action had changed the fate of a waiter in his shop. Li Zongjio walked directly to the Tianyu Tavern. These days, the Tianyu Tavern seemed to be very lively. There were also many people gathered in front of the Tianyu Tavern in Lower Kong City. Look, the Yang family is also recruiting. Looks like there's going to be a tough battle. The Shi family is paying even more. Also, I heard that the Tiger Gang has already gone over. There are still places available. Shall we go and try? Hearing these voices, Li Zongjio automatically put them behind his ear. He walked towards the VIP passage. This time, he didn't have to pay. He walked in directly. Damn, how can that kid just walk in? That's the VIP passage. He's the one who spends money. Chapter 233. Not long after Li Zongjio sat down, Supervisor Cheng came in with a long sealed box. The length of the box was just enough to hold a scroll. In other words, it contained the information that Li Zongjio wanted. However, judging from Supervisor Cheng's expression, it seemed that he was not ready to give this to Li Zongjio. What's wrong? Is the price not enough? Before Supervisor Cheng spoke, Li Zongjio said directly. Logically speaking, the money that Li Zongjio paid was enough to buy anything, not to mention that Li Changjiang was just a person from a small Luoxia city. Could it be that he had some kind of protection behind him? Mr. Li misunderstood. Of course, the money is enough. However, whether you want to read this information or not, we still need to communicate with you. Now, are you sure you want to open this document? Supervisor Cheng said. Some business deals were hot. However, there were some things that had to be done for the sake of money. Now that Li Zongjio was sitting here and the information in his hands was of great importance, if something happened later, Li Zongjio would not be able to escape responsibility. Their Rain Pavilion was in charge of selling information. Therefore, they had to let the buyers know what exactly the item in their hands was and what kind of impact it would have. At the same time, they had to make the buyer admit that it was something they insisted on wanting. In this way, there would not be any problems in the future that would be blamed on Rain Pavilion. Everything would be borne by Li Zongjio alone. As for Li Zongjio's identity, Supervisor Cheng had also done some investigation in the past 2 days. However, he was the young master of the Li family in Luoxia City. Although his recent performance was somewhat outstanding and his strength was not bad, he was still a little lacking in maturity to take on this task. This matter is voluntary by me, Li Zongjio. What do you think? Li Zongjio said indifferently. Most of the time, the other party's kind warnings were useless. They were already at the door, so who would care about how many serious matters were involved? The other party was just going through the procedures. Alright, since young hero Li has personally replied, then this dossier will be opened by you personally. Supervisor Cheng said as he handed the box and the key to Li Zongjio. The sense of ceremony was still very important. As expected of a big business, these things still needed to be paid attention to. Supervisor Cheng also stood up and waited outside the door. Only Li Zongjio was left in the room. Li Zongjio opened the box in his hand without a care in the world. He took out the information inside and read it carefully. Sure enough, this Li Changjiang had actually become a lackey of the Qingyuan villa. Since it was related to the Qingyuan villa, there was naturally a certain degree of danger. At the very least, it wouldn't be so easy to deal with. the matter of the Qingyuan villa wasn't so easy to get rid of. In fact, it was already a very sensitive topic in the intelligence community. According to the information provided by the Rain Pavilion, this Li Changjiang was doing well. In Dingkuan province, in the 72 cities, he had become a small leader. His subordinates could directly contact the experts of the Black Zen sect, the Blood Moon sect, and other sections. His strength wasn't good, but he still had a certain advantage in terms of ability. The last time he appeared was in the wild forest 30 miles away from Xiaokang City. Even Li Zongjio couldn't help but wipe his eyes. It was clear that he had personally delivered his head to them, and it was close by. This was naturally the best for Li Zongjio. This Li Changjiang must have a motive for appearing. Otherwise, he wouldn't appear so easily. This guy seems to be quite busy, but no matter where you are, I will catch you. Li Zongjio snorted coldly in his heart. In Li Zongjio's heart, Li Changjiang was already a person who had been sentenced to death. The next location is predicted to be Wolf Fong Valley. Li Zongjio exclaimed in surprise. It seemed like buying information from the Rain Pavilion was worth the extra money. Based on this kind of service, they had even given such a prediction. Although it wasn't necessarily accurate, it was still somewhat helpful. Li Zongjio naturally had a rough idea of where to go. This time, you won't be able to escape. The 72 cities referred to the 72 third-class cities in Dingkuan province. This was an extremely general number. Even cities like Luoxia City were included. Some of the cities were located in remote areas, but they were still within the boundaries of Dingkuan province. Li Changjiang's current status was the leader of the two major sections. He relied on the people under him to win over the powers of the surrounding cities. If there were any who were dissatisfied, they would be secretly assimilated and cleaned up. Qingyuan Villa had already been laying down this foreshadowing, waiting for an opportunity to explode. Wolf Fong Valley. Li Zongjio memorized the name of this place. He got up and prepared to leave. Supervisor Cheng was also at the door to see him off. Young hero Li, this old man will send you off, said Supervisor Cheng. After all, he had spent 1,000,000 gold coins. Naturally, he had to be considerate in his service. However, he also hoped that Li Zongjio would come to the Rain Pavilion again. It's good for young people to be enthusiastic. However, there are some things that you can't be impulsive about. Supervisor Cheng couldn't help but say. A small number of people like them who sold information were also here to seek revenge. It could be seen from their eyes that they clearly knew that their strength was inferior to the other party. However, after knowing this information, they still wanted to kill the other party even if they had to die. In the end, they died tragically under the enemy's blade. In the end, they didn't succeed in their revenge. Wasn't this injustice? Li Zongjio was still young. He was obviously here to seek revenge. Supervisor Cheng's words were not part of his job description. If Li Zongjio was willing to listen to him, then he would listen. However, if he didn't, it had nothing to do with him. In this line of work, one must have a bottom line that could not be casually crossed. Otherwise, one would fall into deep self-blame. What are those people doing? Li Zongjio looked at the bustling hall of the Rain Pavilion. Some groups that were usually in a state of rest also appeared one after another, causing the business of the Rain Pavilion to flourish. Because something had appeared in Wolf Fong Valley recently, the families in the city could be said to be recruiting people and looking for talents from all walks of life. They wanted to fight for it. This was a time to test their financial resources and comprehensive strength. Every time a treasure hunt happened, such a situation would occur. It was extremely popular. Recently, a meteorite fell from the sky in Wolf Fong Valley. It is said that the meteorite brought some terrifying meta-beasts with it. However, the meteorite itself has the effect of increasing one's mental strength. Hence, the forces in the city are recruiting here. Wolf Fong Valley? Li Zongjio was surprised. Wasn't this the place he wanted to go? It seemed like Li Changjiang had come to Wolf Fong Valley for this reason. However, the information provided by the Rain Pavilion didn't mention this. Obviously, this was another piece of information. In order to make money, they naturally had to hide this layer. Guardian Li? After bidding farewell to Supervisor Cheng, He had just taken 2 steps when he heard a surprised voice. Li Zongjio looked over and saw Yang Hongyu from the Wuxue Pill sect standing in front of him with a look of surprise. Chapter 234. Beside Yang Hongyu, there was another female disciple from the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. However, Li Zongjio did not know her name. It seemed like she had returned to meet her parents. "Greetings, Protector." The female disciple respectfully greeted Li Zongjio. This was the youngest protector of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. The strength and luck that he displayed in the arena were enough to make the disciples look up to him. "Protector, are you here for the Wolf Fong Valley?" When Yang Hongyu saw Li Zongjio appear, he immediately knew. However, he was still amazed. It had only been a few days, yet the protector was able to obtain this information and rush over. Obviously, there was a powerful force behind this. Li Zongjio nodded. The main reason was to hunt down Li Changjiang. Now that he knew that there was something in the Wolf Fong Valley that could increase one's mental energy, Li Zongjio was even more interested. How could he miss out on such a good opportunity? Even if it could only increase one's cultivation speed by 1%, it would still be a priceless treasure. If Protector doesn't mind, you can follow our Yang family. Let's set off. It just so happens that our group is also rushing towards the Wolf Fong Valley. The Wolf Fong Valley's roads are complicated and there are many traps. If we are not careful, it will be easy to take the wrong path. Protector, let's go together. We can look after each other on the road. There was an urgent desire in Yang Hongyu's eyes. He hoped that Li Zongjio would go with them. That way, there would be an expert in their team and they wouldn't panic no matter what. Okay. Li Zongjio did not think too much about it. Since he had already said so, he might as well go together. After all, these were only the younger generation of the sect. Their lives were in his hands and they would not be a threat. Furthermore, if they went together, it would definitely save a lot of trouble. The Wolf Fong Valley had already become a popular place. Many people were waiting to take advantage of the chaos to create a commotion. At this time, if they did not stabilize the situation, it was very likely that various small battles would break out. It would become a place where hatred would erupt. When he heard Li Zongjio agree, Yang Hongyu's eyes were filled with joy. "Young master, we've recruited everyone." At this moment, a middle-aged man dressed like a butler came to Yang Hongyu's side and cupped his hands. Behind the butler were some mercenaries dressed as hunters and killers. These people were all recruited on the spot. The vanguard troops of the Yang family and the other families had already set off, and this batch of troops would also be sent to the battlefield as reinforcements. No matter what, the reinforcements must be done beautifully. If they had the upper hand, they could take advantage of the situation and crush their enemies. If he was weak, he could make up for it. If they really couldn't do it, they could at least have someone to cover their retreat. "Young master, this is?" The middle-aged housekeeper saw Li Zongjio and couldn't help but frown. Now was a critical time. Not all good friends and brothers could be trusted. Who knew how many people would pretend to be good on the surface, just to stab you in the back at the last critical moment? Therefore, he had to be careful. "Uncle Niao, this is the protector of our Fog Snow Alchemy sect, Protector Li. Protector Li is willing to go with us to Wolf Ivory Mountain." Yang Hongyu introduced, but the man called Uncle Niao didn't say anything, nor did he have an exaggerated expression. After all, the strength of Fog Snow Alchemy sect, in the eyes of these people, was like a group of country bumpkins playing with themselves. There were really no talents. Even such a young child could become a protector. Was there a mistake? Was this protector bought with money, or did it depend on his skin? "Young master, you've already crossed the bottom line of the family head by taking this girl. Now you want to bring an outsider with an unknown identity. This is making things difficult for me," Butler Niao couldn't help but say. To be honest, this would also be an experience. Although Yang Hongyu was the son of a concubine, he was still the blood of the master. If he performed well, there was a chance for him to be put in an important position. After all, the master still thought highly of Yang Hongyu. He specifically asked Uncle Niao to bring Yang Hongyu along. Those young masters of the main family had already set off. Uncle Nyo asked Yang Hongyu to stay with the backup team in order to prevent Yang Hongyu from bumping into those big brothers. Otherwise, Yang Hongyu would suffer a lot. The girl beside Yang Hongyu was also a girl brought back. Logically speaking, she couldn't go with them. However, for Yang Hongyu's sake, Butler Nyo didn't stop them too much. He just had to be careful when the time comes. If there was something wrong with this girl, even if she was killed on the spot, it would be a very normal thing for them. However, now that they had to bring an outsider, it unknowingly increased their risk. If this Li Zongjio was bribed by the enemy to spy on them, or if he was here to cause trouble, it was very likely to lead to a big disaster. This kind of thing couldn't be careless. Uncle Nyo, don't worry. I guarantee it with my life. Yang Hongyu said. Uncle Nyo, he's just a kid. Don't worry. We, the Black Fierce Vajra group, will watch over you. Now let's hurry up and go. At this moment, a muscular man walked up. The people behind him were also dressed in black. Moreover, they were all muscular men. With such a physique, no matter where they went, they would be extremely eye-catching. And such a lineup was the famous Black Fierce Vajra group in the city. The strongest and fiercest person in the lead was said to be able to kill a level 2 meta beast with a single punch. With such mighty strength and power, what else was there to say? Of course, you're the strongest. Obviously, these people from the Black Fierce Vajra group didn't put Li Zongjio in their eyes. Even if Li Zongjio wanted to do something, he could easily kill him. In front of him, such a thin and weak body couldn't take a punch at all. Butler Nyo didn't care about this matter. After all, he was only a butler, and his surname wasn't even Yang. If something really happened, the Yang family wouldn't kill a young master of a concubine and leave him, a servant with a different surname. Since Yang Hongyu insisted, he would let Yang Hongyu bring him along. Let's go. Young master, please take care of us on the way. Don't wander around and talk nonsense. Every preparation of strength was an extremely important matter. Hence, it had to be kept secret. Otherwise, if the other party knew how many people you were bringing and which route you were taking, they would be able to prepare better. It wouldn't be strange for them to even kill you in advance. Li Zongjio naturally knew the concerns in Butler Nyo's heart. However, to Li Zongjio, it didn't matter. He just wanted to set off quickly. These people from the Black Fierce Vajra group actually had their own battle beasts. Some people would raise their battle beasts from young. They would bring them along, nurture them, and fight together. Some people who were more determined would choose to refine their battle beasts into their own Yuan spirits after they broke through to the Sky Origin Ancestor realm if the potential of their battle beasts was sufficient. Of course, most people hadn't reached this level. Before that, they were still the best of companions. There were a total of 7 people in the Black Fierce Vajra group. Every one of them had a different Yuan beast by their side. These Yuan beasts had different functions. Those who could raise these Yuan beasts had a certain foundation. Otherwise, the daily expenses of these Yuan beasts would be huge. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to bear it at all. Obviously, the strength of these people was not bad. Other than the Black Ferocious Vajra group, there were also some idle mercenaries who were following this group. However, they were relatively independent. Many times, these people who fought alone were more dangerous. However, under the general trend, there was a high possibility that they would become cannon fodder. Chapter 235. The Yang family's team rode on fast horses and carriages as they sped towards the Wolf Fong Valley. There was originally only one carriage. However, at Yang Hongyu's request, another one was added. It was meant for Li Zongjio. This made the mercenaries from the Dark Fierce King Kong group very unhappy. What kind of ability does this kid have to actually dare to sit inside the carriage while they were riding outside, risking the danger of being shot to death? However, they did not immediately go berserk. Although Steward Nyo also knew that this was not appropriate, Yang Hongyu's attitude was firm. Otherwise, Yang Hongyu would have allowed Li Zongjio to enter the carriage while he rode outside, which would have unknowingly increased the risk of danger. There are still 4 hours before sunset. We have to reach the camp within 3 hours. Steward Nyo glanced at the sky and then at the map. They had to speed up. This group of more than 20 people was not a weak force. Go! The horses galloped. The dirt road on the ground had already been trampled to a pulp and mud was flying everywhere. Furthermore, they had naturally eaten a lot of dust as they rode. On the other hand, Li Zongjio was very relaxed as he ate fruits in the carriage. At the same time, he was also playing with the flame that he had just refined in the carriage. The obsidian flame flickered gently in his palm. The power of the obsidian flame can be unleashed at will. This is really not bad. Li Zongjio could not help but admire the power of the obsidian flame in his heart. This was indeed a huge surprise for him. Now, he had even more sure-kill moves. The evil soul eye, the golden dragon finger, and the obsidian flame. Even if he faced some slightly stronger origin ancestor-level powerhouses, Li Zongjio was confident that he would be able to kill them before they took out their Yuan spirits. There was a huge difference between a origin ancestor-level powerhouse with a Yuan spirit and an origin ancestor-level powerhouse without one. Just like the old man that Li Zongjio had killed in the Northern Medicine Tower previously, he should have only broken through to the origin ancestor realm after a long time. Under such circumstances, it would be extremely difficult for him to refine his Yuan spirit. Because once that power was poured into the body, it was very likely that your body would explode. If his body couldn't bear it, then such danger would appear. Therefore, in order to not take any risks, that person didn't completely refine the power of this origin spirit that day. At most, it could only be considered an incomplete primordial spirit power. The spiritual power of the second level of the White God Endowment and the power of the Obsidian Flame was enough for Li Zongjio to kill in all directions. The group quickly advanced forward. The Wolf Ivory Mountain range was already right in front of their eyes. When they saw the mountain range in front of them, everyone could not help but slow down their footsteps. Currently, the night sky was gradually darkening. At this time, the light was the dimmest. Sometimes people could see clearly, and sometimes they couldn't. Usually, there would be hidden dangers at this time. Those hunters hiding in the jungle would never complain about prey that came too often and too easily. Everyone, be careful. Housekeeper Nyo couldn't help but say as he composed himself. Then, the Black Fierce Vajra group also led people to protect the carriage group in the middle. Go! A black eagle wore beast sword into the sky and swept towards the sky. In this darkness, the eagle's eyes were the sharpest weapon. If there was any danger, it would be able to see clearly from afar and report back to the people of the Black Fierce Vajra group in a timely manner. It was less than 20 minutes away from the camp. However, this 20 minutes journey was also the most difficult. In this deep mountain, danger could erupt from the side at any time and completely knock you down. A large group of people just passed by. We still don't know their identity. A member of the Black Fierce Vajra group went to scout and returned. However, just as he finished speaking, he heard a whistling sound from the depths of the forest. Whoosh! Be careful! With a cry of alarm, the sharp arrow suddenly pierced the back of the Black Fierce Vajra group member. With a thud, he fell to the ground. However, after falling down, he quickly crawled forward. The arrow just now didn't kill him. Instead, it hit the armor on his body. With the armor on his body, he could more or less resist some of the threats. Cough, cough. When the arrow was pulled out, the steel plate on his back had already been pierced through. To have such powerful archery skills, it must be the multi-faced foxes group. The leader, Black Bear, also made an analysis. Just from the other party's attack, he could already determine the identity of the other party. Obviously, they were no strangers to this opponent. In Buck State, the only person who could possess such superb archery skills was the multi-faced fox. Between mercenary groups, there would often be friction. Sometimes, there would also be some deep hatred. This made people even more amazed. This was really too dramatic. This was because the enemy of the Yang family just happened to invite the multi-faced foxes group. Kiki, this road has already been sealed. You can take another road. If you continue to move forward, don't blame us for being impolite. From the depths of the forest, a cold laughter sounded. The arrow just now was just a show of force. Otherwise, that arrow would have been enough to blast this person's head. The reason why the other party didn't kill them was because they didn't want to cause more trouble. Although they had some friction with the multi-faced foxes group, they weren't considered life and death enemies but competitors. It was naturally a good thing to have one less competitor. There were many famous mercenary groups in Deccan City. The King Kong mercenary group, the multi-faced fox mercenary group, the tiger mercenary group, the wolf mercenary group, and the fierce horse mercenary group. Each of these mercenary groups had their own experts. This matter wasn't something that could be easily settled. Obviously, the other party had taken control of this road. It was to block the people behind. Even if they couldn't, a little delay would be of great benefit to them. Just their group alone was enough to wear down so many people. What should we do? Should we rush over? Housekeeper Nyo couldn't help but ask. Yang Hongyu also appeared at this time. The forest in front of them was sealed. At this moment, the sun was gradually setting and the light was dim. If they wanted to force their way in, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. If they wanted to take a detour and take another road, they could still reach it. However, it would take more time, at least 3 times longer. The other party's archer is one of the best. Housekeeper Nyo couldn't help but feel a little nervous. To be honest, he hadn't experienced many life and death situations like this. He was just a housekeeper who usually took care of some family affairs, such as daily necessities. Now that he had to face a bloody battle with these people, he was a little flustered. The people of the Black Fierce Vajra group were also waiting for the orders of their employers. Even if they wanted to force their way in, their professionalism would let them. They would directly kill their way in without hesitation. In the underworld, the first thing one had to do was talk about professional ethics. Set fire, burn the dry grass, and create smoke. Since they are hiding in this forest, let's burn them all. Yang Hongyu made a prompt decision and directly gave the order. When these words came out, Housekeeper Nyo's eyes couldn't help but light up. This was indeed a good idea. Once the fire was set, the other party would definitely not be able to hold it in. At that time, they would take advantage of the situation and kill their way in. Shield. Release the fireball. One of the members of the Black Fierce Vajra group was holding a fiery red fox in his hand. He took a deep breath and then suddenly spat it out in front of him. Boom! A fireball was spat out from his mouth and fell towards the forest in front of him. When the people hiding in the forest saw this scene, they immediately knew that things weren't good. Boom! The fireball exploded, and the scorching heat instantly ignited the dry forest. The people of the Black Fierce Vajra group were indeed brave and fierce. They led their men and killed their way in. They rushed into the flames without the slightest fear. Chapter 236. Many-faced fox led a few archers and quickly retreated from the forest. Now is not the time to confront them head-on. With our equipment, we have a chance to kill them. Many-faced fox said to a man. The man was wearing the Sher family's uniform. The power of the Sher family was slightly stronger than that of the Yang family in Lower Kong City, but both sides were evenly matched. Hearing Many-faced Fox's explanation, Sher Yen nodded. Retreat. Sher Yen from the Sher family was ordered to stop these reinforcements. If necessary, it was necessary to take a few heads. It was time to intimidate these people and let them know the gap between them. The people of the Black Fierce Vajra group opened up a path of fire. The following road was no longer suitable for carriages, so they got down from the carriage. The leader of the Black Fierce Vajra group said to the young masters with a dark face, "For the rest of the time, you will walk in the middle and don't run around. Otherwise, we won't be able to protect you." Since they had received the money, they had to do it. This time, the Black Fierce Vajra group had paid a high price to hire them. This price alone was worth their lives, but they didn't want to die. Therefore, he needed these foolish young employers to cooperate a little. "Don't worry, let's go," Yang Hongyu said. He had experience in the Fog Snow Pellet sect, but when he really came to this dangerous situation, he couldn't help but feel a little nervous. However, when he looked at the calm Li Zongjio beside him, he calmed down a little. Li Zongjio was an expert who could defeat a general realm expert. As long as Li Zongjio was here, there would be no problem. These children are probably scared to the point of peeing their pants. Someone from the Black Fierce Vajra group looked at Li Zongjio and said meaningfully, Naturally, he was mocking Li Zongjio. There was no other reason. It was because Li Zongjio had been sitting in the carriage all this time and didn't show his face. The mountain road was rugged, so it was naturally bumpy for them to sit on the back of the horse. Most importantly, Li Zongjio didn't pay them, so why did he need them to protect him? This was a very disadvantageous situation for them. Li Zongjio did not pay them. It's not just peeing his pants. I think he's about to poop. The members of the Black Fierce Vajra group ridiculed Li Zongjio. They had just broken through the blockade set up by the multi-faced fox. Naturally, their hearts were filled with arrogance. Facing this Li Zongjio, what was there to be afraid of? Naturally, their words were as ugly as they could be. If they were to talk about acting shamelessly, then they were really no match for these people. Protector Li, don't take their words to heart. Yang Hongyu looked a little embarrassed. Wasn't this a slap to his face? However, Yang Hongyu also knew that they were able to enter this place because of the Black Ferocious Vajra group's contribution. Therefore, each of them had their own momentum. Protector, please be magnanimous. The girl next to him said the same thing, but she didn't say it too loudly. Otherwise, those people would go crazy again after hearing it, and they would be called despicable people in a while. What? We're here? Li Zongjio suddenly woke up. Just now, Li Zongjio was thinking about the power of the obsidian fire. One must know that the obsidian fire itself carried a powerful force. For Li Zongjio, there were still a lot of areas that needed to be explored. The obsidian fire corresponded to a set of special elemental incantations. Therefore, Li Zongjio was also thinking about this thing. He didn't hear what those people said at all. If Li Zongjio cared so much about the words of some insignificant people, then Li Zongjio's life would be very tiring. If you had the guts to say something in front of Li Zongjio, then Li Zongjio could guarantee that you wouldn't have to live so tiring in the future. Not yet. We need to walk this part of the road, but we'll be there soon. If they were to ride a horse, then they would easily become the enemy's target. Therefore, they had to walk on the ground. If they encountered any problems, they would be able to deal with them more easily. Moreover, the road here didn't allow them to move at high speed. Okay, let's go. Yang Hongyu nodded and the group continued on their way. For the members of the Black Fierce Vajra group, it seemed that breaking through the defense line of the multi-faced fox was a very honorable thing. So much so that they became even bolder when they moved. The group of people killed their way into the valley. Li Zongjio suddenly stopped and raised his head to look at the top of the forest. What's wrong? Yang Hongyu couldn't help but ask. Just as his voice fell, he saw that above the treetops, more than a dozen black figures were descending from above. Crush. These people were very good at hiding their figures. Even the members of the Black Fierce Vajra group didn't notice them. Not good, enemy attack. The members of the Black Fierce Vajra group exclaimed. They saw their companions being easily cut down by the enemy. Gotcha! A person rushed towards the leader of the Black Fierce Vajra group. When their blades collided, the leader of the Black Fierce Vajra group was able to clearly see the appearance of the person. Lupus Gang. The tall and thin leader was the leader of the Lupus Gang. The members of the Lupus Gang were despicable and shameless. They liked to launch sneak attacks from behind. They also liked to suddenly attack when their opponents were about to succeed and seize the fruits of their labor. The reputation of these people was extremely bad, but there was nothing that could be done about them. This was because their strength was also very strong. Even if they were to fight the Black Fierce Vajra group head-on, they might not be able to determine the victor, not to mention that the other party was also good at sneak attacks. Just the moment when they suddenly attacked, several people were seriously injured. Seriously injured. Hee, hey Xiong, you shouldn't have gotten involved in this muddy water. The leader of the Lupus Gang sneered. The serrated scimitar in his hand was like the fangs of a poisonous snake. He stared at the person in front of him and couldn't wait to behead He Xiong. Lupus, I think you're courting death. He Xiong's aura rose sharply. He Xiong didn't have the slightest bit of fear in a direct confrontation. Since the Lupus Gang dared to cause trouble and even tried to kill the members of the Vajra group, then they should be prepared to be killed. He Xiong was about to counterattack. However, he heard an intense sound of something breaking through the air from behind him. Xiu! Bang! He Xiong's entire body was sent flying. The arrow exploded behind him and directly blew up He Xiong's clothes, revealing the iron armor underneath. Even a large piece of the iron armor was shattered. Just this arrow alone was enough to seriously injure He Xiong. Cough cough, multi-faced fox. He Xiong, who was lying on the ground, spat out a mouthful of blood. He immediately realized that the multi-faced fox had actually joined forces with the Lupus gang. These two fellows who were good at sneak attacks actually dared to join forces to deal with them. Hurry up and block them. Housekeeper Nyo said in an incomparably flustered manner as he continuously gave out orders. However, even under this chaotic roar, there was no visible effect. The Black Fierce Vajra group was already at a disadvantage. After being attacked from the front and back, they couldn't even react in time. More than half of their members were killed. The defeat of the remaining members was only a matter of time. You stay here and protect the protector, Yang Hongyu said to the girl beside him. Staying by Li Zhongjio's side was definitely the safest. Therefore Yang Hongyu did the same. However, he had to take action and defeat the enemy. He had to lead his troops out of this place. Judging from the strength of these people's attacks, perhaps his father and the rest were also under extremely fierce attacks. It was precisely because of this that he had to lead the troops out of this place. Otherwise, it would be too late. Clang, clang, clang. After a round of fighting, dangers surrounded them. However, in the end, the members of the Black Fierce Vajra group fell to the ground one after another. Now, only 3 of them were left standing side by side with Yang Hongyu, facing the enemy in front of them. Although the Lupus gang suffered some losses, they only lost a few people. Now, the enemy still had nearly 10 people. Moreover, in the darkness, there was still the archer unit led by the multi-faced fox eyeing them covetously. You can't escape, right? Young Master Yang, if you are willing to pay more, I can choose to let you live. Chapter 237. Luo Lang naturally would not let Yang Hongyu go. As long as he killed Yang Hongyu's wealth would naturally belong to the Luo Lang gang. How dare you? Aren't you afraid of our Yang family's revenge? Housekeeper Nyo said angrily, pointing at Luo Lang. His eyes were filled with anger. This is not a simple task. If you touch the people of the Yang family, you are just a small mercenary group. Compared to the Yang family, even if you casually throw money, you will be crushed to death. Could it be that the other party didn't care about the consequences by doing this? For the sake of money, he wouldn't go as far as to throw away his life. The one who will kill you is naturally not me. Luo Lang sneered. Then he stepped aside and made way. The person who walked out made Steward Nyo Yang Hongyu, and the others suck in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. It's you, Shi Yan. Yang Hongyu could be said to be gnashing his teeth in anger. Shi Yan was also wearing yellow clothes, looking at Yang Hongyu with a proud face. They had been rivals since they were young. Now that they had grown up, the competition between them had become more intense. Yang Hongyu was sent to the Snow Elixir sect to cultivate, which could be considered as an exile. This was partly due to Shi Yan's contribution. At that time, he had caused a lot of trouble in Lower Kong City. In order to cover up this matter, he had no choice but to send Yang Hongyu to the Snow Elixir sect. Now that they had met, it could be said that their eyes were exceptionally red. You didn't expect this, right, Yang Hongyu? Don't worry, after I kill you, I will take care of your woman for you. Shi Yan saw the woman beside Yang Hongyu, and his eyes were filled with lust. A woman with such a graceful figure was the best in the world. How could it be wasted on Yang Hongyu? Shameless. The woman beside Yang Hongyu could not help but say. Her face was filled with shame and anger. How could these people be so shameless? Alright, it's getting late. Those who should be on their way should be on their way. After saying that, Shi Yan waved his hand. Kill them. I'll kill you. Yang Hongyu roared. Suddenly he saw an arrow flying towards Li Zhongjio's head. Whoosh! The arrow did not hit Li Zhongjio. Instead, it turned into a ball of flame in front of Li Zongjio's head and burned away completely. Li Zongjio could not help but raise his head. Someone actually dared to ambush him. While he was thinking, someone shot an arrow at him. And the flame that burned the arrow was the obsidian fire that Li Zongjio had just refined not long ago. Who would have thought that the obsidian fire had the ability to protect its owner? Something strange? When the multi-faced fox saw this scene from afar, he was also stunned. In fact, the arrow just now was not shot by them. It was one of his subordinates who had shaken his hand and shot the arrow at Li Zongjio. However, he did not expect that the arrow could not even get close to Li Zongjio's body. What? He actually has such an ability. Seeing Li Zongjio's situation, Luo Lang and the others were shocked. On the other hand, Yang Hongyu was overjoyed. He had almost forgotten that Protector Li was here. With Protector Li's help, it would be a piece of cake to kill these people. Now that these people had angered Protector Li, only death awaited them. Kid, this has nothing to do with you. I don't think you're from the Yang clan. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, don't blame my sword for being merciless. Luo Lang looked at Li Zongjio in front of him and felt that there was something strange about Li Zongjio. Therefore, he hurriedly sent the people in front of him away. It was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Anyway, they just had to complete the task. Originally, it had nothing to do with me. But now, it has something to do with me. Li Zongjio directly stepped out. When He Xiong and housekeeper Niu saw Li Zongjio walking out, they almost scolded him. Kid, you're courting death. Anyway, at this point, not many people would be able to survive. Let's see what this kid has up his sleeves. Then you're determined to be our enemy. Luo Lang's eyes suddenly darkened, revealing a sinister look. The bloodlust steel blade in his hand suddenly slashed towards Li Zongjio. Since Li Zongjio did not intend to leave, he must be their enemy. Instead of waiting for the other party to make the first move, he might as well make the first move and take down Li Zongjio first. Go! Li Zongjio flicked his finger. There seemed to be a transparent flame energy that penetrated towards Luo Lang in front of him. With a swoosh, it sank into Luo Lang's body. Luo Lang's eyes widened as he stared at Li Zongjio in front of him. He felt his body burning and was in extreme pain. He could no longer speak. Finally, with a shrill howl, Luo Lang's entire body was burned into a pile of ashes. Before turning into ashes, one could see the incomparable fear in Luo Lang's eyes. He didn't know where the flame came from, but it directly burned him to a crisp. There was no one who wouldn't be afraid. One must know that Luo Lang's strength was at the peak of the Yuanshe realm. Such an expert died so inexplicably. Could it be that Li Zongjio had the ability to instantly kill a peak Yuanshe realm expert? Luo Lang's subordinates looked at each other. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, seeing Luo Lang's weapon turn into ashes, they would have thought that Luo Lang disappeared like a magic trick. This was really too terrifying. He killed the boss. Brothers, let's go together and destroy him. Luo Lang's subordinates immediately roared and rushed towards Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio didn't disappoint them. Mental energy spread out along with the obsidian flame. He didn't even need to make a move. The charging bodies of these people abruptly stopped. After stopping, their entire bodies burned on the spot. Ah! So hot, so hot. My hand! Everyone lasted less than 3 seconds before they were all turned into ashes. There wasn't a trace of blood or flesh left. There wasn't the slightest trace of struggle. Even some of the things on their bodies were burned clean. There wasn't a single trace left. Just half a minute ago, these people still had the absolute advantage. They could even control the life and death of Yang Hongyu and the others. However, in the blink of an eye, they all disappeared completely from this world. This sudden change caused He Xiong and the rest to rub their eyes. They were afraid that this was some kind of magic trick that caused people to disappear. However, when they looked at the charred marks on the ground and smelled the charred smell, they understood that these people had been completely burned away. These people are still too weak. They are lucky that they didn't have to suffer the torture of burning their souls. Li Zongjio sighed. He wanted to see what it was like to burn one's soul. However, with the strength of these people, they couldn't hold on until then. After killing Luo Lang and the others, Li Zongjio reached out and grabbed the bow in one of their hands. He shot an arrow towards the forest in front of him. Shio. This arrow didn't even have the process of aiming. It was as if it was shot randomly. However, the multi-faced fox broke out in a cold sweat from the shock of this arrow. When he lowered his head, he heard the arrow whizzing past his ear and abruptly shot one of his subordinates beside him. This person was the one who had carelessly released the arrow just now. Bang! This person's head directly exploded on the spot. It was as if a watermelon was thrown to the ground. It directly shot this person to death. Fuck, how is this possible? Many-faced fox hid his body under a soil mound and looked at his companion who was shot to death behind him. They were in the dark. Coupled with the restriction of the terrain, it was harder to shoot this arrow than to climb to the sky. Not to mention that the power of this arrow was so great that it directly shot a person to death. This made it even more ferocious. It was hard to believe that this arrow had to be so powerful and skilled to be able to do it. Many-faced fox, who was good at archery, knew the power of this arrow. Retreat! Many-faced fox hurriedly said in a low voice. If the arrow just now had wanted to take his life, it would have been easy. Chapter 238. Yang Hongyu and housekeeper Nyo looked at each other. At this moment, Yang Hongyu suddenly had a feeling that after reaching a certain level, everything in the world seemed to be negligible. It was really the difference in level. Just like the dead Shi Yan. Just a second ago, Yang Hongyu was almost killed by Shi Yan, and Shi Yan had almost become his nightmare. He had been suppressed by Shi Yan since he was a child and had always regarded Shi Yan as his life's greatest enemy. However, at this moment, Shi Yan had died without a sound. He did not even leave behind any last words. Even at the moment of his death, Shi Yan did not expect such a situation to occur. A life-and-death enemy had disappeared just like that. For Li Zongjio and Protector Li, Shi Yan was just a very simple stumbling block that they could easily kick away. There was no need to care too much about it. They could just throw him away directly. It was as if Shi Yan's death was not a big deal at all. At least in Li Zongjio's eyes, it was so. Even Li Zongjio did not know who he had just killed. What was his name? This is the attitude that a strong person should have. Yang Hongyu looked at the confident and proud Li Zongjio. Although he did not know why Li Zongjio had shot that arrow just now, it should have been a signal to threaten those people to leave quickly. However, no matter what, this threat had been avoided. Even if there were still people in the dark who had not made a move yet, they would think carefully at this moment and would not dare to make a move carelessly. However, although this external enemy had been eliminated, there were still people who were unwilling to accept it. You are so powerful. Why didn't you make a move earlier? If you had made a move earlier, my brother would not have died. You beast! There were only 2 people left in the Black Fierce Vajra group. In addition to He Xiong, there was a younger person who had joined the Black Fierce Vajra group later. He had wanted to make a name for himself, but in just a few days, his good brother had been killed just like that. The one who had died was his brother. Shut up! When He Xiong heard this, his expression changed. He quickly grabbed the person and covered his mouth. This person really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, daring to say anything. If the other party wanted to kill you, then it would just be a matter of exhaling a breath. Since the other party had saved you, it meant that you had saved your life. Yet, you still dared to criticize the other party for being too slow. That was simply too stupid. Why should I shut up? Motherfucker, you're a coward, trash, and dog shit. He Xiong couldn't stop his brother from speaking, and Li Zongjio was already looking at him. The man was still cursing when he suddenly saw a figure approaching. It was Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio reached out his hand and lifted the man up. He choked the other party's neck. The man struggled but couldn't speak. The corner of his mouth even started to twitch. Cough, 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 cough. Li Zongjio grabbed the man's throat with one hand. One could see that the man was in extreme pain and had difficulty breathing. However, Li Zongjio didn't let go of his hand, nor did he speak. He just hung the man up. Half a minute, 1 minute. Everyone could feel the man's pain. He Xiong wanted to plead for mercy, but he knew that it was impossible. He was wrong from the beginning. This Li Zongjio was actually such a hidden expert. He didn't see it at all. The female disciples of Wuxue Pill sect couldn't bear to look at him. Housekeeper Niu had never seen such a scene before. It would be more pleasant if he directly chopped off the man's head. However, it was the first time he saw someone slowly suffocating to death. Moreover, it was such a close distance. 2 minutes later, the man's body couldn't move anymore. His whole body went soft. There was no confrontation at all towards the man's cursing. You said bad things about me, so I'll just kill you. I'm still alive, but you're already lying on the ground as a cold corpse. You can't say anything. It was so simple. Do you want to avenge him? Looking at his teammate who had already turned into a corpse, He Xiong suddenly heard Li Zongjio asking him. He was suddenly frightened. This was simply a greeting from the devil. Revenge? How could it be? He Xiong subconsciously shook his head like a rattledrum. No, he deserved to die. He deserved to die. He Xiong said in a trembling voice. He Xiong clearly knew about this matter. It was clearly this ignorant man who was courting death. The other party had already shown his strength so clearly, yet he still wanted to come up. Didn't he deserve to be killed? There was nothing to doubt at all. He Xiong had been around for so many years, so he naturally knew the temper of some experts. In front of these experts, human life was incomparably cheap. There was nothing to cherish. If they wanted to kill you, they would just kill you. Well, that's good. Let's go. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Hearing this, He Xiong finally breathed a sigh of relief. If he had answered incorrectly just now, Li Zongjio would have directly reached out and killed him without hesitation. It would be as simple as squashing an ant. Now, he was the only one left in the Black Fierce gang. Although they could still recruit new members here, the loss this time was indeed quite heavy. But to be able to get rid of the Lupus gang, it was a huge gain for him. For He Xiong, this was a great harvest. At least in the future, if he told others that he was the one who killed Jackal, no one would doubt him. Even if he wasn't the one who killed Jackal, he would still have some credit. Steward Niu saw Li Zongjio's ruthlessness and strength. He also widened his eyes. His eyes were really as wide as copper bells. He originally didn't want to bring Li Zongjio along. He even thought that Li Zongjio might be the enemy's spy, or someone who wanted to take advantage of others, or someone who was trying to swindle others. However, the strength that Li Zongjio had displayed was enough to prove it. He was an extremely terrifying expert. Being able to kill the Lupus gang, who was at the pinnacle of the master level, meant that Li Zongjio's strength was at least at the ancestor level. Fortunately, he didn't offend Li Zongjio too much just now. Looking at the Black Fierce gang member who was strangled to death, Steward Niu heaved a sigh of relief. Otherwise, the person who was strangled to death would have been him. No matter what, he still had to continue on this path. He Xiong also continued to follow. Although his team was completely annihilated, he was still around. Furthermore, he would only be able to receive the remaining balance after this mission was over. In front of the Wolf Fong Mountain Valley, the ground was stained with blood everywhere. It was obvious that a bloody battle had broken out in the valley just a moment ago. No one would have thought that this battle would be so fierce. Both sides did not leave much room for maneuver. This battle was basically a battle of life and death. The Shi family's camp. The head of the Shi family had personally taken part in the battle. He already had a rough idea of the power of the meteorite. Even if one was only 100 meters away from it, one could feel the degree of activity of the mental energy. This showed how effective the meteorite was on mental energy. Whoever obtained such a divine object would definitely become rich. Of course, it could also be a hot potato. Therefore, they had to get rid of the object before the news spread. Otherwise, if a stronger force set their eyes on this area, it would be difficult to deal with this matter. Therefore, they had to obtain this object tonight. It seems that the Yang family has already made preparations. Not only did they gather all the elders, but they also prepared a yuan item formation for us. Chapter 239. The Shi family made a living by mining ores. They also had an ore vein under their hands, which was naturally of a higher grade than the Huang Yuan ores. However, while they had the financial resources, in terms of hardware, they were still lacking compared to the Yang family. This was because not only did the Yang family search for ore veins, they could also forge yuan tools. Not to mention how superb their skills were, just the fact that they could forge yuan weapons was already beyond the scope of ordinary people. Ordinary families simply couldn't compare to them. Any yuan tool could be sold at a very high price. Sometimes, it even depended on one's sales level. As for powerful yuan weapons, ordinary people naturally wouldn't be willing to sell them. They would choose to keep them for themselves. Sometimes, if they accidentally forged a powerful yuan weapon, the Yang family wouldn't sell it. Even the Yang family's team had an origin artifact for each of them. How many families could be so generous? Although the Yang family's overall strength is not as good as ours, the advantage of their yuan weapons makes up for the gap between us. It will be difficult to kill them. An elder of the Shi family said. Previously, they had a confrontation in the valley, but after this confrontation, they didn't have much of an advantage. On the contrary, they suffered a lot of losses. So now they were all here to discuss countermeasures. That old monster Yang's strength has increased. Coupled with his family's yuan weapon, the fire dragon scissors, it won't be easy to kill him. The head of the Shi family, Shi Wuhan, said in a deep voice. There was a long burn scar on his right arm. It was precisely because he was sneak attacked at a critical moment when he was fighting with the head of the Yang family that this scar appeared. It was indeed difficult to succeed in a frontal attack. Patriarch, I have someone I can recommend to you. If you're interested, perhaps you can meet him. The person sitting at the bottom of the table raised his head and said, this person was Shi Wuhan's son, Shi Lei. He brought his son to the elder group for a meeting to focus on training him. In Shi Wuhan's generation, the Shi family only had this one sole heir. So, Shi Lei was also focused on training. Oh, Shi Lei, do you have anyone you can recommend? Shi Wuhan suddenly became curious. His son's ability to do things was also very strong. Many things that couldn't be settled were quickly settled by Shi Lei. Therefore, Shi Wuhan was very optimistic about Shi Lei. Other than the fact that his strength had yet to catch up, he was already able to hold his own in all other aspects. Hee, greetings to Shi clan head. Outside the tent, a person walked in. He wore a black robe and a black hat. Most importantly, his left sleeve was empty. Was he a one-armed man? Seeing the person who walked in, the elders of the Shi family immediately began to recall what was going on in their minds. Who was this one-armed man in front of him? Who are you? Shi Wuhan looked at the newcomer and felt a chill run down his spine. This person's background was definitely not simple. It wouldn't be so easy to deal with him. Maybe he was a poisonous snake that had been lured into the Shi family. Who I am is not important. What's important is that I can give you what you want. The one-armed man said slowly. His voice was a little hoarse and no emotions could be heard. It seemed that he was struggling fiercely. It seemed that he was deliberately suppressing himself. It also seemed that he had experienced something, which caused his throat to be so hoarse. Ridiculous. Our Shi family doesn't deal with nameless people. If you don't want to report your name, then please leave. The great elder of the Shi family said slowly with arrogance in his eyes. Since he had come to find them and wanted to hide his identity, it was too ridiculous. Therefore, he naturally had to take him down a notch. Otherwise, he would think that he was the one in charge of the Shi family's tent. The one-armed man's gaze turned cold. Seeing that Shi Wuhan was also expressionless, he admitted to the great elder's words. This kind of show of strength often happened. It was the great elder and the clan head who cooperated well. Good. You should be able to recognize this token. The one-armed man took out a token. There were only 2 words engraved on the token. Qingyuan. But when they saw the token, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Qingyuan Villa. You are from Qingyuan Villa. Many of the elders of the Shi family exclaimed. They never thought that the one-armed man in front of them would have such a strong background. The people of Qingyuan Villa were not simple. Especially recently, there had been a lot of discussion about Qingyuan Villa. That made him even more fearful. Shi Wuhan knew that things were not good. Qingyuan Villa had come uninvited. It was obvious that they had their eyes on them. The fate of the Shi family was not clear. Clan head, don't worry. We can help you secretly. We won't show ourselves. We'll take that meteorite from outer space. In return, we can help you get rid of the Yang family. The one-armed man said. Hearing that the one-armed man had come with a token in his hand, he dared to directly ask for the meteorite that they had worked so hard to get. The elders of the Shi family all had extremely unfriendly expressions. Shirley, your friend seems a little tired. Ask him to go back to Kingstown to rest. Our Shi family will take care of all the expenses. The head elder of the Shi family said slowly. Although his words were extremely polite, the meaning was already very obvious. What he meant was that he was a little tired now and was talking nonsense. Why not just leave? Otherwise, if things turned sour, both sides would not have an easy time. Hearing the head elder's words, the one-armed man's gaze changed. When he looked at the head elder of the Shi family again, the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. I think you talk too much. As soon as he finished speaking, a whistling sound rang out. Before the head elder and the others could react, they saw a long spear piercing towards them. The long spear pierced in from outside the tent and instantly pierced through the head elder's body. The head elder spat out a mouthful of blood on the table. His head also fell on the table with a bang. His eyes were wide open as he looked in the direction of Shi Wuhan. Shi Wuhan was also enraged. He actually dared to kill his Shi family's great elder right in front of him. This was too arrogant. This was practically stepping on the head of the Shi family. But just as Shirley was about to stand up, then he saw the one-armed man take out an item. When he saw the item appear in front of his eyes, Shi Wuhan's eyes were filled with shock. This is Ice Demon Stone. In this way, the fire dragon scissors of the Yang family are just trash. The one-armed man held a sparkling and translucent stone in his hand. This stone exuded a demonic aura. It was as if there was a crystal soul within it, constantly tempting and attracting people. Have you thought it through? The Shi family is not the only one who can destroy the Yang family. I just want to give you a chance. The one-armed man said slowly. His tone was filled with tyrannical and threatening murderous intent. If the Shi family didn't agree, they wouldn't let the people in the tent walk out alive. After all, they had already seen the token. In order to ensure the confidentiality of this matter, they naturally couldn't let these people walk out alive. The many elders of the Shi family were angry but did not dare to say anything. As for Shi Wuhan, he looked at the ice demon stone on the table. The anger in his eyes gradually turned into madness. If you can really destroy the Yang family, there is no harm in cooperating with you. Chapter 240. Whether it was exterminating the Yang family or obtaining the meteorite, it was all for the sake of making money. If they obtained the meteorite, it would be very troublesome. After all, it was very difficult to obtain it without a certain level of skill. It was impossible to protect it at all. He could only act quickly so that he wouldn't draw fire to himself. On the contrary, if he could directly exterminate the Yang family during this process, then he could directly transfer the item to Qingyuan Manor. That would definitely be a very profitable thing. After all, obtaining the meteorite might not be a guaranteed profit. However, exterminating the Yang family and acquiring all the properties under the Yang family would be a guaranteed profit for the Shi family. Moreover, they would directly eliminate a competitor. Under the current trend of the general environment, it was a world where the big fish ate the small fish. There were too many forces in the new generation now. Once they got support, they could easily rise up. After that, they would be able to get a lot of opportunities. The old and the new were changing too fast. If they couldn't grow quickly, it would be very difficult to maintain a steady pace. If you don't want to kill, it doesn't mean that others don't want to kill you. This was an extremely real and cruel situation. One had to have enough power. Moreover, one had to act before others. Seeing that Shi Wuhan had agreed, the one-armed man smiled coldly. Then he waved his hand. Outside the tent, a large number of footsteps could be heard rapidly retreating. It was only at this moment that they realized that the Shi family's camp had been surrounded by them. If they hadn't agreed earlier, the first elder wouldn't have been the only one who would have fallen. It was too terrifying. Life and death were just a matter of a thought. Tomorrow morning, we will attack. We will take the opportunity to seize the meteorite. In addition, I wish you all the best in exterminating the Yang family. Rest well tonight. After the one-armed man finished speaking, he turned around and left the Shi family's camp. At this moment, the many elders of the Shi family heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at the cold corpse of the first elder, some of them rejoiced, some of them were worried, and some of them were thinking, since the first elder was already the first elder, when would it be their turn to ascend to the first elder's position? All sorts of thoughts popped up in their minds, but Shirley didn't seem to care at all as he pushed the first elder's corpse to the side. Congratulations, father, for swallowing the Yang family. In the future, our Shi family will be the undisputed #1 family in Lower Connecticut City. Shirley said. At this moment, Shi Wuhan was also immersed in the joy of the cold demon stone in his hand. As a yuan weapon, the cold demon stone's power was above the fire dragon shears. The fire serpent shears could be considered as an elementary grade 3 yuan weapon. The cold demon stone in his hand was equivalent to a tier 3 middle stage yuan tool. Regardless of its grade or power, it had an extremely overwhelming effect on him. Shi Wuhan put away the ice demon stone and glanced at Shirley. Shirley was still young, so he didn't really understand the risks involved. He only saw the benefits before him. In the future, even if they were able to swallow up the Yang family, as long as they didn't die, they would still have to listen to the orders of Qingyuan Manor. It was equivalent to standing on the same side as Qingyuan Villa. Since they were standing on the same boat, they naturally had to live with honor and disgrace. So much so that when necessary, the Qingyuan Villa would sacrifice those families. After all, in the eyes of the Qingyuan Villa, those families were chess pieces that could be used. The reason why the Qingyuan Villa refused to reveal their true identities and were only secretly assisting them was so that they could leave behind a weakness that could be used against them. Everyone go and rest. We will attack tomorrow. Our goal is to kill Yang Yan. Shi Wuhan said. This Yang Yan was the head of the Yang family. At the moment, in the Yang family's camp. It was only a mountain away from the Shi family's camp. Both sides were vigilant against each other. After all, this was the wilderness. Even if the other party killed all of them, they could cover up all traces and the City Lord Mansion wouldn't say anything. Currently, the City Lord Mansion couldn't even manage all the big and small matters in the city. Why would they care about people who came to the wilderness to seek death? Once they left the city, it would have nothing to do with them. Therefore, they had to be fully alert and keep a close eye on the other party, not allowing the other party to take advantage of them. Previously, these two families had fought each other and went through a bitter battle. The reason for the battle was because of the problem of seizing the entrance. There was only one entrance near the meteor. However, both sides were stubbornly clinging onto this entrance and weren't willing to give in easily. Naturally, it was a battle. How are our casualties? Yang Yan asked. This time, he had brought a lot of his family's strength. However, the other party had also come out in full force. It seemed that they had already planned to kill them here. Fortunately, Yang Yan brought out the fire dragon shears. Otherwise, in the battle this afternoon, they would have suffered heavy losses down there. 2 of our brothers have died. Elder Yang He's injuries are rather serious. As for the others, they're fine. Standing beside Yang Yan was his eldest son, Yang Feihong. Yang Feihong was resourceful and could see the big picture. He was able to control the whole situation. However, his only flaw was that when Yang Feihong did things, he would do things by hook or by crook. Some of them were excessive, some of them were absolute. Second son, Yang Feiyu. In this Yang family, it could be said that he was brave and fierce. He also liked to cultivate and didn't like to manage the family's affairs. Therefore, most of the matters were left to Yang Feihong. Yang Feiyu was also good at charging and breaking through the enemy lines. Although this was a little weak, it was still possible for him to obtain a position in the family after making contributions. In any case, It was better than doing some accounting behind people's backs, so people could see where his contributions were. Third son, Yang Hongyu. From this name, one could tell that it was casually given. Or rather, it could be said that for this third son, he had poured more effort into it. If he could combine the strengths of these two sons, it would naturally be a good thing. Why hasn't our supply line arrived yet? In addition to bringing helpers, it was also necessary to bring some healing supplies. These crucial things might not be fully prepared when they left in a hurry. Who would have known that they would suddenly have to go out and fight? Third brother is in charge of this matter. Logically speaking, he should have arrived already. We can't rule out the possibility of an ambush on the way. Yang Feihong said. This Yang Hongyu was just a concubine's son. His mother's side wasn't strong enough, so he couldn't achieve anything. Therefore, he could only do odd jobs. Moreover, this Yang Hongyu was relatively young. However, as a person who was confident and prepared, Yang Feihong wouldn't easily ignore a person with potential. However, on the surface, he still needed to take care of this person. Ambush? If we suffer heavy losses here because the supply line didn't arrive, who will bear the responsibility? This disappointing thing. Yang Yen was a little angry. He slapped the table and was very dissatisfied with Yang Hongyu's performance. At this moment, a guard came to pass a message. Family head, third young master is here. Let him in. Yang Yen shouted in a low voice. At this moment, Yang Yen was obviously angry. If he didn't do his job well, it would be fine. However, at such a critical moment, how serious the consequences would be. Could one imagine? Li Zongjio and Yang Hongyu entered the Yang family's camp. Yang Hongyu first asked Steward Niu to arrange a place for Li Zongjio and the girl to rest. Originally, Steward Niu was very disdainful of Li Zongjio and looked down on him. However, later on, Li Zongjio showed his invincible power, which indeed left a deep impression on him. At the end, his viciousness, no, it wasn't viciousness. It was more like a dominating feeling. Most importantly, in the process of their following journey, they also found the body of the person who was shot dead by Li Zongjio with an arrow. It was confirmed by the Black Bear that this person was the first fierce general under the multi-faced fox. Although his head was shot, his identity tag was not taken away. It was obvious that they retreated in a hurry. At this moment, only then did Steward Niu understand that this Li Zongjio was clearly a real god. Father called me? I'll go. Protector, you can rest here for a while. Go ahead. Li Zongjio said. Having food, drink, and sleep was much better than sleeping alone in the wild. At least there were no mosquitoes in the tent. Chapter 241. The obsidian flame is indeed able to kill without leaving any traces behind. Such a domineering power is indeed refreshing. Li Zongjio loved this kind of power the most. Bloody? Li Zongjio was not a violent person. It was just that Li Zongjio preferred to be more direct. Usually, when he killed someone directly, the process would be more violent and bloody. However, this did not mean that Li Zongjio liked it that way. Since Li Changjiang is in the vicinity, I think he will also try to seize the meteorite. This thing is mine. Although Li Zongjio had yet to see a meteorite from outer space, he had heard of it. Around the meteorite, there was a circle of exotic beasts. Every night, they would become unusually active, so they couldn't get close to the meteorite at night. Moreover, during this half a day, the strength of these strange beasts would decrease, which gave them an opportunity to attack the meteorite. Otherwise, just the exotic beasts brought by the meteorite would be enough to devour them completely. Several bounty mercenary teams wanted to take the meteorite for themselves. They tried several times, but in the end, they could not escape and were devoured by the exotic beasts. Such an outcome was extremely tragic. Therefore, after sacrificing his life, he concluded a rule for his descendants. Only during the day would it be the most effective time and also the time when the risk was the lowest. However, there was only one passage to enter, so he had to seize the opportunity. Li Zongjio did not care about what happened in the Yang family's camp. After all, he was already here. Tomorrow, he would take away the meteorite and then kill Li Changjiang. He would go directly to the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. He would not delay anything else. Li Zongjio immediately began to cultivate his white god Fu. The yuan power in his body continued to condense. After being tempered by the obsidian flame, his mental energy had also become an additional attribute. I wonder what kind of attribute this black dragon soul has. Li Zongjio thought to himself. However, the black dragon soul was still in an extremely weak state. It had to recover a certain amount of strength before it could be upgraded. Furthermore, Li Zongjio had also observed for a while. This darkness dragon soul seemed to be impervious to everything. Ordinary yuan power had no effect on this darkness dragon soul. If he wanted to awaken this darkness dragon soul and make it stronger, he would need to find something with yuan power of darkness. Only by directly absorbing the darkness origin energy would the darkness dragon soul become even more powerful. This black dragon soul is really arrogant. However, Li Zongjio also knew that the black dragon soul was definitely not simple. Otherwise, the 4 dragon souls that had transmigrated with him were all supreme being experts in his previous life. However, until now, only the black dragon soul had its own consciousness. Although it was not strong, it still proved that it was different from the rest. If not for Li Zongjio's strength, the one who would have died would have been Li Zongjio. The awakening of the black dragon soul was equivalent to waking up from a dream and discovering that one had returned to 3,000 years ago. It was the same. However, Li Zongjio had transmigrated back because Li Zongjio's soul had awakened. From this point, one could tell how powerful the black dragon soul was. However, if I want to strengthen my cultivation, I can only look for dark yuan power stones and absorb them. Under normal circumstances, it is very difficult to find a place with dark yuan power. Li Zongjio had traveled all over the continent and knew that there were places with dark yuan power. However, those places were too far away for the current Li Zongjio. Moreover, the difference in cultivation level was too great. If Li Zongjio went to those places, the most direct outcome would be death. If his luck was bad, his soul would be extracted and he would become a slave of those dark beings. This was not something that was written in novels. Instead, it was something that would truly trap you and make you unable to reincarnate. The only way to do so was to commit suicide. In fact, one would not even be able to commit suicide. The soul control technique that had controlled Luo Sha and the others was obtained by Li Zongjio from such a place. This was only the tip of the iceberg. There were even more powerful characters hidden within. Therefore, if the current Li Zongjio went to such a place, it would be equivalent to courting death. It was a quiet night and the surroundings were very peaceful. Yang Yan originally thought that the bastards of the Shi family would launch a sneak attack in the middle of the night. He specially ordered them to be more vigilant and did not dare to sleep too deeply. He only did some recuperation. But from the looks of it now, the Shi family must have a bigger conspiracy. Father, this is our fog snow pill sex protector Changwu. Yang Hongyu, Yang Yan, and the rest walked over. When they saw Li Zongjio walking out, they immediately introduced him. Originally, when Yang Yan saw Li Zongjio's youthful appearance, he also had doubts about Li Zongjio's strength. Was Li Zongjio really that powerful? However, last night, housekeeper Niu had reported some things to him. In addition, He Xiong patted his chest and affirmed that Li Zongjio was really a very capable person. Yang Yan had seen some young geniuses before. He knew how terrifying some young geniuses could be. Therefore, he did not dare to underestimate Li Zongjio. Greetings, Protector Li. I'm Yang Hongyu's father. Thank you for saving Yang Hongyu's life yesterday. I'm extremely grateful. After we're done here, I'd like to invite Protector Li to the Yang family for a few drinks. It's nothing. Since the Yang family head is here, I would like to ask for a favor. Li Zongjio clasped his hands and said. Yang Yan seemed to be giving him face. Li Zongjio did not put on airs and sincerely asked for a favor. This was a very rare thing. Think about it, if a former supreme being asked you to do something for him, that would mean that he thought highly of you. Otherwise, he would have directly ordered you to do it. Please speak, Protector. Yang Yan said with a smile. Indeed, he had a favor to ask of the Yang family. Otherwise, Why would Li Zongjio be so kind as to help Yang Hongyu? Moreover, he happened to meet him in the Heavenly Rain Inn. He was obviously holding back. I am looking for this person. He is near the Wolf Fong mountain range. Li Zongjio said as he took out the portrait given by the Heavenly Rain Inn. He opened it and presented it to Yang Yen and the rest. Yang Yen took the portrait. The texture of the paper was very good. Obviously, it was a high-level intelligence report from the Heavenly Rain Inn. Anyone who could get this report was not an ordinary person. He looked carefully at the portrait of Li Changjiang. Yang Yen frowned. He did not have any impression of this person. Father, the elders are ready. At this moment, a handsome young man walked over. He was wearing armor and holding a long spear. His appearance was very similar to Yang Yan's. This person was Yang Yan's second son, Yang Feiyu. Before returning to the family, he had gone through 3 years of training in the border army when he was young. Therefore, he had the aura of a tiger and a wolf. Okay. Don't worry, Protectorly. If this person appears, the Yang family will inform you. At this moment, we have important matters to attend to. Yang Hongyu returned the scroll to Li Zongjio and gave a beautiful reply. Li Zongjio did not expect to get an answer so quickly. Let's go. I want to see what this meteorite looks like. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.